Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all for joining us here this evening for the City Council meeting and public hearing of May 18th, 2026. Before we get started, just a little housekeeping here for those of you that might have shown up for an application or a zoning issue that will not be heard tonight. I want to make sure to let you know that the following items have been deferred and will not be considered this evening. First is Z-26-04/V-26-06, 1425 Mayfield Road. That will not be considered this evening. Second is the ordinance for alcohol ordinance text amendments. Third being MP-26-05, CLUP-26-03, Z-26-03/V-26-03, Empire Old Milton Parkway, Camden Pond. So if you were here for any of those items, you may have just saved yourself a few hours' time this evening. They will be expected to be heard at some point in the future. I'll note for the record that all members of council are present and accounted for, except for Councilman Brady. Unfortunately, he was called out and will not be able to join us this evening, or at least we don't anticipate him being able to join us later. And as always, we begin our city council meetings with a pledge of allegiance. So if you're willing and able, please stand and join us. And since Councilman Brady, on the printed agenda, was going to be appointing a new design review board member, he's not able to join us, so we won't be able to do that this evening. We'll make sure and take care of that as soon as possible. And so the first item that will be on our agenda now is the consent agenda. Consent agenda will consist of the city council meeting minutes from the meeting of May 5th, 2026. Also includes the correcting agenda item, request for proposal 26-113, design build, Wills Park Field, artificial turf conversion, and consent agenda item, financial management report for the month ending March 31st, 2026. Is there anyone on council that would like to remove anything from the consent agenda? Seeing none. Ms. Orhusky, do we have any public comment cards on the consent agenda?
No, sir, we do not.
However, if anyone wants to come forward and speak on this item, now's your chance. Seeing no one come forward, we'll close public comment. Do I have a motion from council?
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion to approve the consent agenda by Councilman Hypes, second by Councilwoman Reeves. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion to approve the consent agenda, please vote yes. And it does pass unanimously. So now we'll move on to the public hearing portion of tonight's meeting. And if you would, Ms. Eswine, could you please make the announcement of the public hearing procedures?
An individual requesting to be heard on a matter related to the purpose of the hearing must be recognized by the mayor before addressing the city council. Upon rising to speak, the speaker must identify himself or herself and furnish a home or business address before proceeding with any comments or remarks. The council will allow proponents a total of 10 minutes to speak in support of an application. Opponents will be allowed 10 minutes to speak in opposition. Comments are accepted first from the applicant, followed by persons speaking in favor, and then from those in opposition. Upon conclusion of any opposing comments or presentations, the mayor will allow the applicant to offer rebuttal if any time is remaining in the originally allotted 10 minutes.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Woodman, I believe you have this item. This will be V-26-05, Tobacco, 12385 Charlotte Drive.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The first public hearing item before you this evening is a request for variance to allow a 4-foot tall 4-rail horse fence within the 10-foot landscape strip along Charlotte Drive. The applicant is requesting a variance to Unified Development Code subsection 2.3.6B to allow the fence to remain along the front property line on Charlotte Drive. And I do have the location map here. This is the subject property here, located at the southeast corner of Charlotte Drive and Pruitt Drive. It is 12385 Charlotte Drive. This property is just under 1 acre. This is the property here. The property is zoned R15, and it was recently redeveloped with a 2-story, 5,000 square foot single-family detached home. You see the home here. This is the front property line along Charlotte. This is Pruitt Drive on the side of the property. The reason that the applicant, well, before I go into that, let me discuss the city's code requirement. The city's land development inspector, as the applicant was redeveloping the property, identified the code violation to the property owner regarding placing the fence on the property line. That UDC subsection that I referenced, 2.3.6B, that is the fence and wall code requirements. It says that fences are to be placed 5 feet behind the required landscape strip. And there's a 10-foot landscape strip that is required along Charlotte Drive. So the fence, this red line represents the property line on this property. That is the current location of the fence. The code would require that fence to be set back 10 feet behind the landscape strip and then an additional 5 feet behind that. The applicant is asking to allow the fence to remain on the front property line with a 0-foot setback. The reasons for that is with the redevelopment of this home, there were stormwater requirements on this property, which resulted in an infiltration system in the front yard of the property. There are also drains that are immediately behind the landscape strip that was planted behind the fence. So if the fence were to be moved back, it would be basically located in the middle of the yard or right up against the front facade of the home, and it just would look unusual. So that's the reason for the applicant's request. With this request, because you do have the fence, and this is at an intersection, we were concerned about sight lines. So we did go out to the site, and we did measure site distance, measuring 18 feet back from the edge of Charlotte Drive, and then snapping a picture at 3.5 feet above the finished grade of Pruitt Drive. And the picture that you see in the staff report, and I'll show you here, will show you that there are no obstructions within those sight lines. That's what you see here. So this picture was snapped 18 feet back from the edge of Charlotte Drive into Pruitt Drive. The location of that 18 feet was approximately at the same location as the stop sign on Pruitt Drive. And as you can see, looking south, the fence is located in this location here, and it does not obstruct sight lines. Just give you an idea of what this looks like out at the location today. So this is the fence that has been constructed along the applicant's front property line on Charlotte Drive. The landscape, the required trees and shrubs are planted directly behind the fence. And then this is the fence here with the landscape strip material behind it. And this is one of those drains associated with the infiltration system in the front yard. Just give you an idea of what that looks like. And then this is the plan. Those are the 2 drains located here that feed into this system in the front yard. We reviewed the applicant's requests. We believe that the application of the ordinance would create an unnecessary hardship for the applicant and that the property has peculiar conditions due to the presence of the underground infiltration system. As I mentioned, it would require that fence be pushed back closer to the home, leaving it in the middle of the front yard. The applicant did also find examples. Staff also confirmed these. There are many examples along Charlotte Drive Some other roads in the city too, Mayfield Road, there's many examples of the four-board horse fence right at the property line. This is one on Charlotte Drive. This is another. This is another location. Again, on Charlotte Drive, and then I think I had a couple examples from Mayfield Road as well. And as I mentioned, we did go out and check site distance, and the fence is not obstructing sight lines. The applicant did provide a citizen participation report. They did indicate that they had received a comment from a neighbor that the fence may block, just concerned that the fence may block visibility. And there was also that same comment on the CZIM Community Zoning Information Meeting sign-in sheet from April 8th. And with that review, staff is recommending approval of the applicant's variance request subject to one condition as stated in the staff report in your packets, and that condition basically would allow for the fence to remain in its current location with a 0-foot setback. And that concludes the presentation. If you have questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Do we have any questions for Mr. Woodman on this item? Seeing no questions coming forward, must have done a great job, Mr. Woodman.
Thank you.
Would the applicant like to come forward at this time?
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. My first time here, so I've never done this before. Apologize, I have some nerves hitting me. But I wanted to say, first of all, my name's Stephen DeBacco. Been in the Alpharetta, Milton area for 25 years. We moved into unincorporated Alpharetta in 2000 before part of it was taken over by Milton. We're looking forward to getting back to Alpharetta. We've been working on this project for 18 months, and I think we're down to the final short strokes here. But I think Michael did a great job explaining kind of the variance request. We didn't know what we were getting into with the infiltration system, and when our landscapers put in the fence for our dogs, we realized that the fence being on the property line was in violation of the code. We did move the fence on Pruitt Drive to adhere to the code, but we kind of have a landmine in our front yard with the infiltration system, so we wanted to request a variance to keep the fence where it is. Since Michael did such a great job explaining kind of the variance and the situation, I'd just like to request your consideration to approve the variance request.
Thank you, sir. Do we have any questions from council on this item? Councilwoman Reeves?
Welcome back to Alpharetta.
Oh, thank you very much.
Any questions? Congratulations. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Orr-Husky, do we have any public comment cards on this item?
No, sir, we do not.
However, if there's anyone that would like to come speak in favor of this item, now's your chance to do so. I don't see anyone coming forward to speak in favor, so I'll ask if there's anyone who would like to speak in opposition. Now's your opportunity to do so. If you don't mind, just please state your name and address for the public record.
My name is Michael Dean. I live at 200 Pruitt Drive, have for 30 years. I'll agree that the line of sight is adequate now if you pull all the way up to the stop sign. I guess my concern is all the landscaping that's there as it grows out over the months. It's going to take that line of sight and make it non-existent pretty much. Before the house was developed, there was a mailbox there. And every time the lady who had the house previously would not trim it, you couldn't see a thing. So I just want to make sure we don't have a repeat of that, particularly as fast as people can come down Charlotte. They shouldn't. It's 35 miles an hour, but you know what it's like with traffic. So particularly as people are now cutting through there a lot to come and go from Crabapple Corners. So my concern is not so much today. I don't think this is enough to make him move the fence. I just want to go on record that it's a line of sight that just is clear if you're in a car. If I'm in my wife's car, which is lower, it's much harder to see. If I'm in my truck, the stuff could grow pretty good, but it's my concerns, like I said, for tomorrow, not for today. So, thank you.
Thanks, sir. Is there anyone else that would like to come and speak to the opposition of this item? Seeing no one come forward, we'll close public comment. Do I have a motion from council?
Yes, sir.
Hold on. Just in the nick of time.
Just in the nick of time. Well, I'll be real brief. I live on Pruitt Drive, 185 Pruitt Drive. And just to echo what Mr. Dean said, the sideline is fine now, but as long as they don't plant something there that blocks the left turn especially. And I hope y'all will do something about the speed on Charlotte Drive at some point, because no one goes less than 40 to 50 miles an hour down Charlotte. So, thank you.
Sir, I'm sorry, would you please state your name for the record?
John Boggs, 185 Pruitt.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Is there anyone else that would like to come forward?
And Mr. Mayor, before you close the public hearing, if the applicant wants to offer a rebuttal, I just wanted to make sure he was aware he could come down and offer a rebuttal.
Thank you for the reminder. Would the applicant like to rebut that? You have an opportunity to speak to that item. Sure. You may. You still have 6 minutes and 46 seconds.
Just a picture of the fence and the planting behind the fence. So as I stated, throughout the process in the 18 months, we've been kind of renovating the landscaping. We've adhered to all the requirements by the city. And even with the landscape planning, it's all behind the fence. And we'll make sure, and we are very particular about maintaining landscaping. So I'll make sure that none of this landscaping that's behind the fence will ever grow to a point where it will obstruct the view from Pruitt Drive. I looked at some other intersections along Charlotte Drive, and bear with me for 1 second. So Michael did, as I said, a great job, and he showed kind of the intersection of Pruitt and Charlotte. This is just one neighborhood. Before you get to Pruitt Drive, it's another intersection on Charlotte, and this is the side drive looking onto Charlotte. So if you look at the obstruction from an intersection like this versus where we are, I mean, it's a much worse situation. So like I said, I'll make sure that anything we do will maintain the landscaping to make sure we don't obstruct any view along Charlotte Drive. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any questions about what we've heard yet from council? Since we've had public comment, I'll call for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I offer a motion this evening to approve item V-26-05, Tobacco/12385 Charlotte Drive as presented to us this evening. Second.
Have a motion to approve by Mayor Pro Tem Merkel, and a second by Councilman Dorito. Any discussion on this item? All those in favor of the motion to approve as outlined by Mayor Pro Tem, please vote yes. And it does pass unanimously. Welcome back, Alpharetta, sir. Thank you very much. Next item I have up on our agenda is PH-26-10, Portman Brookside Change Condition, Brookside NP Master Plan. Mr. Woodman, once again, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The next item before you is a request from Portman Holdings requesting changes to conditions of zoning related to the Portman Brookside mixed-use development located in Pod A of the Brookside Master Plan. Changes to conditions are requested to amend the site plan, specifically in the retail area of the mixed-use development, increase the restaurant use from 32,000 square feet to 40,000 square feet. So they're not increasing the overall commercial allowance, which was no more than 60,000 square feet. We had a condition that limited the restaurant portion to no more than 32,000 square feet. So it's really an increase of 8,000 square feet of the retail restaurant component that can specifically be restaurant. There are also conditions, changes to modify the referenced roadway section plans and the site program and amenity plans to show the changes to the site plan that they're proposing in the retail area, as well as to delete a condition related to access to the retail area. And so I have the property on the location map here. The properties are properties located at 3625 and 3655 Brookside Parkway, and that is near the southwest corner of Old Milton Parkway and Brookside Parkway. The property today, as you can see on the aerial, is developed with 2 office buildings, just under 300,000 square feet, and then about 1,100 space surface parking lot. This property, as you may recall, was rezoned in 2025 to MU mixed use to allow for the Portman Brookside mixed use development. That development saved one of the office buildings and then proposed to add 60,000 square foot of retail restaurant uses, 75 for sale townhomes, and 335 for rent units. The applicant is specifically asking for changes to conditions 1, 4E, 7, 10, 18, and 19 to replace the site plan date on the site plan prepared by Kimley Horn to reflect the changes to the site plan, and I will show you those in just a second. Condition 4B was the increase to the restaurant use from 32 to 40,000 square feet. Condition 11 referenced the roadway section plans. Deleting condition 43, which no longer applied with the change to the access to the retail area from Brookside Parkway. And then condition 25 to change the reference date on the site program and amenities exhibit. And as part of this process, this development was a DRI, or Development of Regional Impact. And so the notice of decision that is issued by Greta needed to be revised to reflect the modifications to the site plan, and the applicant did do that. And the notice of decision was revised with a date of May 4th. That was included with your packet. And those DRI the DRI conditions are also conditions that are in our zoning conditions on the property. So those have been modified in the conditions, and I'll point those out. So as it relates to the site plan, this is the applicant's proposed site plan. And as I mentioned, the site plan changes are primarily to this retail area here. And I'll show you a comparison of what's approved compared to what is being proposed today and the reasons. So this is the approved plan. This is the 2025 plan that was approved by council. The retail area that we're looking at is specifically here. As you can see, this retail area had the 4 retail buildings with parking kind of in between. The applicant is proposing to revise the site plan and reconfigure that retail area as you see here. The intent here was to tighten up the buildings to create a more walkable area and put the parking to the sides so that you can walk freely around in this retail area. So that's the main reasons for the changes. With this change, you can see that the point of access, so this is the currently approved plan. You see the access off of Brookside Parkway. Brookside Parkway is a little bit further or closer to the intersection at Old Milton and Brookside. So in the revised plan, that has shifted further south. So we did review the proposed changes. We agreed with the applicant's intent and vision here to create a more walkable retail environment. And we do believe that that plan the change does that. If approved, we do recommend that the conditions of zoning be updated to reflect Greta's revised notice of decision dated May 4th, 2026. The applicant provided a citizen participation plan indicating they received no public comment, same on the May 13th community zoning information meeting. And staff is recommending approval of the applicant's request subject to the conditions and the staff report in your packets. And I just wanted to note that the conditions were shown, specifically the changes to conditions were shown in red. Anything that was in black ink was not changed. And so these are all the conditions of zoning that were approved with the initial development in 2025. Only the changes, the conditions in red have been changed. So for example, condition 1, the site plan date revised to 4/16/26, that is all that's changed in that particular condition. You'll also notice towards the end of the conditions, starting with condition number 36. So you see some new conditions and then 3 deleted conditions. Those are as a result of the DRI being revised. And that concludes the presentation. If you have questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Councilman Hypes.
Mr. Woodman, can you tell me how, with the new curb cut on the newer plan that's being proposed, how that lines up with any curb cuts that may be in Brookside West, if any?
So the development that was approved across the street removed the existing curb cut along Brookside Parkway.
So there won't be any
So
competing
there's
curb
no
cut?
curb cut that will align with this.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Reeves.
I was wondering, it says 6 stories in red for the parking deck. Is that what was previously approved?
So that the max 6 stories is what was previously approved in 2025. The only thing that changed in condition 4E is the date of the site plan.
Okay, all right,
Yes.
thank you. Thank you.
Councilman Dorito.
Mayor, I was going to ask that question, so. we did it. Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Woodman? Thank you, Mr. Woodman. Would the applicant like to come forward at this time?
And just a reminder to please state your name and address for the record.
Oh, it's this.
Perfect.
All right. Sorry about that, technology challenged. Good evening, Mayor Gilvan, members of the council. My name is Jessica Hill. My business address is 600 Peachtree Street, and I represent the applicant, Portman Holdings. I'm joined by Clayton Cheek, who is a senior development manager with Portman Holdings, and we're going to walk you through a few things about this application. If you want to go to the next slide. When Portman came to me, they told me the only thing they were changing was the site plan and the amount of restaurant use. And that's really the only thing that they're changing, but unfortunately it impacts 12 conditions, which is why you see the amount of red that you have in the staff report. What you see on the plan, on the screen here, is the amended plan. It's a colored rendered version of it. As Mr. Woodman indicated, the only changes that are being made to this section are to the retail portion of the property. They have grouped the retail buildings together to provide a greater outdoor opportunity between the retail buildings to provide a sense of gathering and place. I'm going to go to the next slide. Here's a comparison. Again, you can see the two plans side by side. The one on the left is the proposed plan. The one on the right is the approved plan. Let's go to the next slide. Here's a close-up view. Again, this is just the retail area that you are seeing. This is the amenity plan that shows where different amenities will be, including dining, outdoor dining. Public art will be incorporated in this area as well. And by gathering the parking to the northern portion of the property adjacent to the bank, again, it gives an opportunity for better pedestrian activity throughout the retail area. Next. Here's some overhead rendering. So looking at this rendering, Brookside Parkway would be on your right, and you can see the proposed retail buildings. Next slide. Another overhead view. Again, the apartments that are in permitting are in the upper left corner, Brookside Parkway again on the right, and you can see on the plan left the centralized green that's proposed. Next slide. Here's a rendering of the kind of type of architecture that you might expect to see. Next slide. And here's a rendering of that central green area that I mentioned that the commercial uses will open out onto. Some of the interest that they have received has been from local chef-driven type restaurants, different outposts of those restaurants. And so the hope is to have a really activated central space. And then here, just another view showing the proposed retail area. All right, next slide. I think we're done. All right. And Clayton's going to tell you a little bit about why we're making this change. And how we got to this decision.
Sure. We really just kind of wanted to simplify kind of the retail and make it, like Jessica said, give it a better sense of place, improve the pedestrian circulation. Jump back here. So you can kind of see that all of the parking is kind of aggregated to one area now rather than split between the two buildings, which helps isolate it and give it a better pedestrian feel when you're between those retail and commercial spaces. That's kind of what drove this decision.
Great. I think that completes our presentation.
Do we have any questions? Councilwoman Ruiz.
On the new site plan, the road that's between R7 and R5 and R6, is that a regular private road? It looked like on one of the renderings, it had diagonal parking on it.
The diagonal parking is only below R7, kind of between the townhomes and R7. There is some, well, phrase that.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Kind of looks like diagonal. Looks a little bit like diagonal parking there under the number 10.
There's starting from the plan bottom, there is adjacent to the townhomes, there's parallel parking, and then there is diagonal parking that is between R7 and the townhomes. And that's consistent with what the previous plan showed.
So in front of, in that, right here, this is all kind of a pass-through, proposed to be pavers.
Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Ms. Orhusky, do we have any public comment cards in favor of this item?
We do not.
However, if anyone would like to come speak in favor of this item, now's your opportunity to do so. I don't see anyone coming forward to speak in favor. Do we have any public comment cards in opposition?
No, sir, we do not.
However, once again, you do have an opportunity to speak in opposition if you'd like. I don't see anyone coming forward, so we'll close public comment. Do I have a motion from council on this item?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I'd like to present a motion to approve item PH-26-10, Portman Brookside change of conditions / Brookside MP as presented to council this evening.
Second.
I have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Merkel, second by Councilman Dorito. Any discussion? Councilwoman Reeves.
Since this is only its trading out of retail, commercial, I think it's a small change, but I appreciate the time and the effort that went into thinking about creating an eating space in some place that we would all like to go. Hopefully, we'll all like to go. So I appreciate the work and the thought that went into that.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion to approve as outlined by Mayor Pro Tem, please vote yes. And it does pass unanimously. Congratulations. The next item up on our public hearing agenda is the PH-26-09, 2045 Alpharetta Comprehensive Plan, transmittal hearing. Mr. Woodman, you're a busy man this evening.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This will be just a quick introduction. The presentation this evening will be from Ben Kern with MKSK. MKSK is the consultant that was selected to update our comprehensive plan. Of course, the comprehensive plan we're updating every 5 years. We did a major update back in 2020, 2021, so this is building upon that plan. I don't want to take too much away from Ben, but Ben is a former employee of the city, worked for community development for 7 years, and was intimately involved in updating the last comprehensive plan, the 2040 plan. So with that, I will turn it over to Ben. We are looking for your authorization to transmit the draft comprehensive plan to the State and Regional Planning Commission for review. And then we would bring the plan back to you for adoption, hopefully before June 30th, because that's our deadline with the state to have that done. So we got to have that scheduled for June 22nd, City Council.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Mayor, Council. It's an honor to be here before you. Ben Kern, Associate Planner with MKSK. We have a business address of 999 Peachtree Street in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm honored to be here with you guys today. I think, as Michael mentioned, doing this plan was a joy for me, knowing that Alpharetta is a place I spent time and has taught a lot to me about the value and importance of planning, and not only planning, which the city does a lot of, but implementing the plan and doing the hard work after the community articulates a vision. And that's something that honored to be a part of continuing that legacy as we think about the next couple generations for the city. So in short, a comprehensive plan has multiple objectives. Guiding growth, incorporating recent planning initiatives, meeting state requirements for funding. And this is an update, and the difference between an update and a rewrite is we're building on the existing plan. We're building on a lot of the structure that's already there and refreshing it based on feedback and new research. So we have been moving quickly, as Michael mentioned. We are now in between the plan development and plan adoption phase, and I've been going really hard on this since the beginning of last fall. So in terms of engagement, obviously engagement is a huge part of any successful planning effort. Collecting feedback from multiple avenues is always a best practice that we try to adhere to. And this includes a mixture of various methods of collecting information and engaging the public and stakeholders who weigh in with their expertise. In respect to in-person feedback, nothing replaces in-person feedback where we can look the community members in the eye, those that come out, have conversations about complex issues, and just be the ears that are hearing what the public feels. So we had multiple meetings in different sessions, different times of day to gather input in person. In today's day and age, it's quite obvious that online engagement, online anything, that's how information moves and gets out. So the project website really became a hub for getting information out, for recapping different things that we'd heard, online survey, idea forum, interactive map. They all got a good amount of feedback throughout the process. Now, a big part of this is, in light of the certain community issues that we hear a lot about, there's an element of education that goes into what a comp plan does, what it doesn't do, what it can control or influence, the things that are outside of its purview, and just delineating where that falls and where this process is as a high-level guiding policy document. Now, our approach as we move into some of the themes and takeaways was taking what we heard through engagement, through discussions with stakeholders, with elected leaders like yourself, what the public was saying, and then also, what are we finding and where are those points of overlap? And from that place, there were really 4 major themes that emerged out of this work where we saw significant points of overlap in both. Now, starting with the idea around growth management, which was one of the first ones and a primary theme. I think as you look at some of the stats here, we won't go over all of them, just recognizing that Alpharetta has grown. Growth has happened. Some of these metrics, when you look at 25 years ago to today, there's a doubling of population, of jobs, of home values. So just a big recognition that growth has happened, but then Alpharetta does not exist in a vacuum. There's a regional nature to the growth that's going on, and that's seen here in home prices, home values, and also population growth. So Alpharetta sits right at the center of a high-growth region and is a part of a bigger picture that's influencing a lot of what's felt in the city. One of the next topics highlighted the office in Alpharetta and thinking about economic resilience and what it looks like in the future. Now, as all of you know, office is a huge anchor for the city. It has been for many years. And it even influences some of the growth that we see on a daily basis, the shrink swell of the number of people who reside here at night, and that grows significantly with the amount of people who spend time here during the day because of a lot of the jobs and the things associated with the employment anchor that Alpharetta is. So that was what we found. A lot of what we heard, office is a distinguishing strength that Alpharetta has over many in the region, over many of its neighbors. And so we heard, there's a lot of office space here, and we should be very selective with how we prune it. There's times when it makes sense to be something else, and there's times where, maintaining this strength and this volume of stock is possibly in the best interest of Alpharetta and can always be changed into something in the future. So that was one thing we heard. Another thing worth noting, won't go into a ton of detail here, but essentially showing areas of the city where there are greater employees physically present today compared to 2019, a pre-COVID number. One thing we heard is small area planning really works. It's worked in the past for this community, and it's done a ton to create an economic resilience. The places where there's been a concerted attention given to that are places where you see a lot of people today spending money and making investments and contributing to the community life. As we move into North Point, we heard this was a broad consensus that North Point is the opportunity. It is the need for growth. It is going to be the most important thing in the city over the next decade. And many respondents said that's the area where future growth and redevelopment efforts should be focused. We found that North Point is still still a regional shopping destination and still frequently used. It's just not what it once was. There are competing centers around it. There's the rise of e-commerce, and those things have influenced some of its usage. Yeah, there's a lot of kind of nerdy stuff on this slide here, but in short, the commercial and office building life cycle, a lot of the buildings in North Point are reaching 30 plus years of age, so there's reinvestment needed to keep HVAC systems, other functions of a viable and competitive office or commercial building or property, competitive for the future. So North Point is ripe, and it is, yeah, it's ripe for change, and for it to remain viable and competitive, change seems to be, yeah, a good opportunity for it. Now, the last thing here is green really matters to the city. Parks, trails, they're frequently used. Yeah, people really put a high emphasis on how much it impacts the quality of life. It's a differentiator. We heard a lot about trees, tree canopy, protecting it. What we found is actually that Alpharetta is close to 50% covered by tree canopy, which is 15 to 20% higher than the average of other communities of its size in the country. So this was a national study. So it is a boon and it is a strength that people notice and they appreciate, and they spoke in favor of. Now, as we move into the community vision framework, this is looking at several common comp plan categories. This is how our current comp plan is set up in categories for laying out the vision statement. So what is being shown next are what are being added to the existing framework, knowing that there's a lot that's already in there. So as we go through these, I'll just make quick notes. I think with housing, this policy and these strategies, they recognize that North Point is the area where growth and future housing has been highlighted as most likely to occur in the community, and so it can be a place to showcase innovative approaches to that. Yeah, when we think transportation and we think of mobility in the city, there's talk about how places, particularly Windward Parkway and Windward, were highlighted as areas where shorter roadways, like the Dryden project is a great example, where there's little shorter grid-like sections that can be established there where there's not as much reliance on only Windward Parkway to move throughout the district. And that's something that was heard through the master plan done a couple years ago for Windward and Highway 9 as well. With economic development, the tech knowledge-based workforce has been a bread and butter and a driver for the economy and quality of life up here for a number of years. So a lot of this is about continuing to be forward-thinking and proactive when it comes to emerging industries and how to accommodate the needs and desires of those businesses. With land use, I'll put a quick bookmark here. These are highlighted more in detail in the upcoming focus area slides that are coming in a minute here. With natural, historic, and cultural resources, Policy 7 I'll draw attention to is all about protecting tree canopy. And it's pretty exciting. We're kind of at a watershed moment for regulation of this. In the past, this is something that would have been hard to regulate in a reliable way at scale. But with the advent of aerial imagery, GIS, AI, the tree code, the way that the city revisits that, Alpharetta can really lead in some ways and in some innovative ways for effectively regulating and monitoring things like the tree canopy within the city. And lastly, with the policy framework here, the community services and facilities, a big one here is just the greenway connections to neighborhoods and businesses. You have the incredible asset of the spines of the Big Creek Greenway and Alpha Link that are emerging, and now people are really wanting to connect to those. So exploring some of the ways to do that effectively and engage in partnerships that will continue to make this a walkable beacon in the region. As we get into the future land use map, we're taking the existing map. The only changes to the colors on the map are both in the Windward area. And these were recommendations that came out of the Windward Highway 9 master plan, but were also reiterated quite a bit through this process. The Windward Plaza area, Windward Terraces area, you'll see on the screen there, you've seen drop-offs in the amount of people who are there on a daily basis. We heard a lot about, there are things that are good there. There are businesses that people enjoy going to, but there's a desire for a freshening up and enlivening some of those public spaces and maybe structurally rethinking about those districts a bit as well, those sub-districts a bit. Equally as important in the future land use map are the 5 focus areas that have emerged. And we have them broken up into 3 different categories here, and all categories are created equal. North Point is the growth opportunity, the big energy capture of the next decade or so.
The next group is an enhance and reposition, and this is looking at Windward east of 400 in the Great Oaks rural 400 area. And it's really important to know that these have served a distinct local role and have been a point of strength and still are for many years, but they're ready for thoughtful reinvestment or repositioning or just giving thought to what the next 20 years look like for these areas of the city. And then 4 and 5, Brookside and downtown, is the sense of a context-sensitive continuation. We heard a lot of support for both of these, but also a lot of caution of just be very mindful of upholding the balance and the context within each of these as they grow and add investment. Last few slides here before we can open up to questions and discussion. Just walking through each of these focus areas. The big one with North Point, one of the things that jumped out to us, that 100-acre area that is part of the current public hearing application for the mall is only 15% of the larger area that's shown on the screen. So there's a ton of space out here. So obviously that's an enormous catalyst potential. But there's other efforts like the North Point Framework Plan, which takes this area that's 50 different owners with different ideas about whether it's tenant obligations or redevelopment thoughts in the future. And it allows a framework for piecemeal but cohesive movement toward the future. So that's a big part of this is trying to move forward with that framework. And then building off of some of the other investments that have already occurred down there, like the Encore Greenway Park, other redevelopment along the corridor. Thinking about Windward, this is an area that has kind of sub-areas and sub-dynamics within it. Edison and Marconi is a part within it where parking lots are full, offices are really being used. You have AT&T and Morgan Stanley and others, and you see people out there walking along Windward and the adjacent streets in droves. And as you move into these other areas, there's a change in some of their dynamics, and so this is an area that can take a further look and can have a different touch applied to areas within it. It's a big part of the city. Big infrastructure improvements like the interchange that just opened off of 400 also have a possibility to change the dynamic, particularly at the northern end of this district. With Great Oaks, I think one of the most interesting things that jumped out to us is where this is positioned and its adjacency. It's got some of the great work along Kimball Bridge and the connections made. The North Point Eco District is also immediately to its east. All the energy with Brookside is immediately northwest, and it's positioned there. And it's a great opportunity for further thought and potentially a small area plan. There's pruning potential as well with some of these office buildings. So that's definitely one that we feel has a lot of potential and deserves more focus going forward. With Brookside, this is a great opportunity to continue to make a neighborhood out of a formerly fully employment designated district, and just keeping pace with some of the infrastructure, and the city does really well to invest up front and then watch the private reciprocation on the back end and see that follow. So that, and then continued partnership with Georgia State and just sharing everything that's going on here and seeing them come to the table and be really excited about their campus up here. And then downtown, need not speak much about this. Is a huge point of pride and identity for the community. It's a tale of balancing the many uses and many interests here in a way that's cohesive. Just being extremely context sensitive about what growth looks like, what is additive going forward, and how does it blend well with the neighbors that are already there. And then lastly, the short-term work program. So the current short-term work program, which Alpharetta's done so much of, check the complete box. That moves over into the report of accomplishments within the comprehensive plan. And then the new short-term work program is made up of a combination of actions from this process, as well as the 4 or 5 planning processes that are shown here that have happened in the last 5 years, just making sure their action programs are also incorporated in here in a cohesive roadmap forward. So with that, I will turn it over and turn it back to you, Mayor, for any discussion and questions.
Councilman Dorito.
Mr. Kern, welcome back. Thanks for your work on this. And with the community input and everybody else's input and community development. And I know it's been a long process and not an easy one, but it's not meant to be easy, right? Because it's the future of the city as far as the blueprint going forward. I don't know if you can go back to that page that you had. It was one of the initial pages with the quotes on it. There we go. So I honed in on the quote from the developers and real estate investors. Never again will office space be built like it was in the 1990s and 2000s. Alpharetta captured so much of that. They shouldn't get rid of too much of it, but selectively prune it. I just want your professional opinion on that quote, because one of the things that we've been kind of discussing as a city is as we get development proposals come before us, a lot of our proposals are or have been considering removal of office space, a reduction of office space, to go to more of a multi-use type development, which I understand. And I think you said it, there's places in the city that makes sense to hone back a little bit. But the council's heard this from me many times. The one thing that has made this city successful since the early 2000s is the development of the business sector of the community, to attract it as a place to invest, to bring children on top of the great schools we have in all public safety. I can go down the list. But it's a regional business hub. And the reason why cities around us have not excelled the way we have is because they don't have the level of commercial office space that we have, on top of the benefit of, taking on the burden of the taxes more so than the residential homeowners. So we have a very good, I think it's 55-45 ratio now, which I'd like to maintain. I just want to know your opinion, because in my business, and our firm works around the world, I'm a senior partner in my firm, we're seeing a lot of resurgence of office space. Now, granted, it's coming with other developments around it. I get that, making it walkable, the things that young professionals are looking for. Different types of businesses actually let their, a lot more remote access to these spaces, that sort of thing. I'm just curious, how much office space in a city like Alpharetta is worth eliminating, based upon what you've heard from the comprehensive land use plan discussions and input?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and I think the exact number may not be as important as I think it's hard to put an exact number on what that is, and I think the case by case consideration of each office conversion is going to be really important. I think that quote, and I told Kathy and Michael that was one of the quotes that got me most intrigued and excited when I heard it.
Me too.
From people in the business, because they essentially said this idea of a time capsule was what came to my mind. Alpharetta's captured something in a time capsule that they're like, if any community tried to go after this today, they couldn't do it. The financing wouldn't work. It's just like you can't build office today like that. Maybe there will be a phase in the, who knows, but essentially they were like, you've captured something and you have it. So once you kind of let the cat out or open the doors too wide and it's gone, it's hard to get back, but you can always, very discretionally meter what happens with that. So in my mind, hearing that, it said you should probably hold on to more of it than I originally thought. I thought maybe this is the era where, and I think when you'll know when it's a community additive project, that it's a better thing than what's there as the office. And some of the ones that have gone down, from what I understand, the Brookside one that just passed it was going to be a lot to even get folks to be able to work in it. So that's a great example of an easy pruning opportunity. But with, like you said, Councilman, office is coming back, and I drove through the city on a Tuesday a few weeks ago, and I was shocked to see the parking lots. I had no idea they would bounce back, and these are big parking lots. Yeah, I think the answer is more on the cautious side, and you'll know when it's something where you feel good about letting it go. So I know that's not a scientific number for you, but
No, it informs me on your opinion as a planner, so it's kind of in the same line of my thinking, that we have the ability of reducing some office capacity in the city.
yeah,
I think we have 20 million square feet of office space versus Johns Creek has 6 million, I think, and Roswell has 2 million. So reason why we attract people here and businesses, because we're a great hub for, we're a regional hub for business in the southeast, frankly, and I want to keep it that way. The follow-up to that is, and you talked about the main sectors of the city, whether it be Brookside, that's already under plan. We know where that's going. The North Point Mall, the Wynwood east of Georgia 400, and the Great Oaks Royal area. Great Oaks Royal area is beautiful acreage of business community. You drive through there, it's like, it's a gem, right? Just like Sanctuary Park, we talked the other day, that it's a gem in the city. If you drive through Sanctuary Park and the corporations that are on there, some of the top companies in the world, right? So my sense on Great Oaks and Royal 400 area is we want to be very careful on redeveloping that into multi-use so quickly, because we have other areas of the city going through that transformation now, right? Through approvals that we've made. And so the counter to that is how much multi-use redevelopment can the city sustain? And what I mean by that is, at what point do we erode the commercial enhancement of these multi-use developments, where it starts eroding, where we start getting vacancies and stuff on commercial development because, and I'm talking about retail and stuff like that, restaurants, where we have too much of it, all competing factors, right? The reason why North Point Mall is basically, turning into an industrial right now is because that was built in early 2000, right? I think, or even earlier than that, 1998, I think. And it didn't stay up to the standards of what people want to invest in and be part of, such as Avalon, right? Very successful. And so my point being is we could almost have too much of it if we're not careful, because then it will not only erode the viability of areas we already have in the city, similar to North Point Mall. So I was just wondering your thoughts on that. I mean, is there a cap on top of the traffic it creates, right? And as much as we want to do about traffic and transportation, our biggest problem is because Alpharetta is a long 400 corridor. All our cities are feeding through Alpharetta. So all Johns Creek, Roswell, Milton, they're all coming through Alpharetta because that's how they get to Georgia 400, right?
yeah.
We can't control what they're doing with their development, but guaranteed it's going to increase. There's a lot of people moving to those areas. So we also have to be very careful on the infrastructure improvements, because you build it, they will come. We attract more traffic. So I'm getting off my point here. But my point is North Point Mall area, which we're very focused on since I've been back in council, and previous to me rejoining council, this council's been working really hard on that. We're about ready to see, hopefully, a site plan come before us in August, which could include a sporting / NHL arena, right? How important is the NHL arena to the redevelopment of that area? Because even in your presentation, you showed it, because that's part of the plan right now, right? At least coming down the pike. How important is that for the viability of achieving the vision for North Point Mall redevelopment versus if we didn't have that, is it still sustainable to the level that we're showing the other redevelopment areas of North Point Mall corridor, including the retail, hotels, office, housing, components, that sort of thing?
Yeah. Yeah, I think some of it's a paradigm. I think we were talking today about just thinking of it as a stadium within a village versus a stadium and then a village around it. So it's, I think if it was the only thing on the table, that would be one thing, but I think there's been a lot of envisioning about what that district could look like as a whole and the aspects that it has that differ from downtown and Avalon and its adjacency to some beautiful natural features and how to, so I think that certainly helps just open the door for success.
Would it be fair to say any arena, any sporting arena, or just an arena in general, or a a performance center, whatever you want to call it, would only enhance that area?
Yeah.
Make it even more of a attractive place to achieve the vision of what we're trying to achieve there. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, another watershed moment is the arena district kind of age where, and the Braves have done a great job and they're being modeled by other communities of how it's more than just the stadium. It's the whole experience. It's the, so that's a very exciting proposition. I think, yeah, that's a huge category. And the area is so big that it does need some big things, I think, to elevate it.
One more question, I'll let my colleagues speak as well, ask questions. But the comprehensive land use plan of the Horizon 2040 comprehensive land use plan, which was the last time the city did it. This is the 2045 plan in draft form right now. Is it fair to say, because I tried to read through this before the meeting tonight, and then love to get your presentation, by the way, if you could share a copy of that. But putting that aside, a lot of information, a lot of great information that came through this, with a lot of public input. Is it fair to say, like, these areas that you pointed out, whether it be North Point, Windward, east of 400, Royal 400, Brookside, those are the areas of change in that comprehensive land use plan versus the 2040 Horizon plan? Would that be fair? I couldn't decipher significant other changes other than those. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yes, sir. And yeah, I think for the most part, there's some shared similarities. 2040, North Point was the #1 there as well. And
Right.
a lot of the work that followed out of that. Brookside was there as well, but it was at a different point. It was more, how do we catalyze it? And now it's catalyzed, and what does refinement and context sensitivity looks like. So a lot of them are similar, but yeah, there are some variations on, there was more of an emphasis on east of 400, this plan, I think, than 2040. So yes, I don't know if that answers your
No,
question.
it does. Thank you, Mr. Kern.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
Councilwoman Reeves.
First of all, Ben, thank you for the information. There is a ton of information here, and I really appreciate it. I appreciate the time we spent, I think, an hour on the phone. I wish I'd had 12 with you. Lots of hits, some misses. I wasn't around when the plan came to do this. I was a candidate. I didn't really have a say. But last fall, when they had the public comment, public survey was out there. It's a really busy election time. It was a special election. We were all getting inundated with lots and lots of not great texts and emails and whatnot. And 450 survey responses makes me sad. I think I told you that in January. It makes me really sad. We have 67,000 people who sleep here at night. So that makes me sad, guys. I don't think it's a huge bellwether of what's going on in Alpharetta citizens' minds. I knocked on a lot of doors. I'm not going to say the numbers because you guys heard it and you're probably sick of it, but I was out talking to a lot of people last year, an awful lot of people. And much of this is similar. The housing, not. Maybe it's our street construction that is, is putting a really big emphasis on this. But, if you are a townhome developer and you're an apartment developer, you want to be in Alpharetta. Most people in Alpharetta don't want that. So they don't want their office space converted. So that's not what I've heard. That is not the overwhelming majority. I think that Brookside, I think downtown is obviously a huge success, and previous councils did an amazing job and great vision. Avalon is a great success. I don't think a mixed use on every corner with retail and housing is going to be good for anybody, including the tenants of the mixed use. I think we can overdo it just like we can overdo townhomes, just like we can overdo anything. And so I have grave concern that we haven't talked to enough people, and this has a deadline of June 30, and there's so much information in here, and I know people who would be really, really love 90% of this. And there's 10% where they're like, you're not a little bit off the mark, way off the mark. Like, I don't know what density bonuses are, but like, people have asked me, I want more affordable housing here. They say it all the time. And I'm like, I hear you, but living in Alpharetta is like beachfront right now. There are people every day that leave their houses in Alpharetta and they drive all the way to downtown Atlanta for work. And you take that same thing and you go around the city of Alpharetta, because as you said, we don't live in a vacuum. Forsyth is building, Cherokee's building, Johns Creek's building, Roswell's building, Sandy Springs is building, Swanee's building. Everybody's building. I don't know that we have to provide all of the housing within a 5-mile radius of downtown Alpharetta. I'm not convinced that our citizens believe that. And I know this isn't the popular thing to say, and this is not the fun thing to say, but this is genuinely what I heard. People are really concerned. They love the tree canopy. They definitely want us to work on keeping the tree canopy. They definitely want North Point developed, 100%. Definitely want something to happen in the Windward Parkway east of 400. Don't know if we have dense housing on anybody's wish list, but we definitely want some of those things to happen. And some of the visioning that has been done by Kathy and her team, the livable communities initiatives, they're fabulous. And Brookside is here, and Brookside, I think, is an anomaly, because originally we planned for all density many years ago in this town to be between North Point and West Side and Mansell and Windward Parkway. And I think that the North Point project really fits nicely in there. But as we start taking density out farther away from our exits on 400, we hit 2-lane roads. 2-lane roads that are not going to be 4-lane. They're 2-lane roads. We just redid a lot of them. So I would just caution all of us to exercise some caution, take a look at the work, and see what it is that we're actually saying. What kind of a blueprint are we putting out there for the next 5 years? I love most of it. The part I'm concerned about is the part that I hear everybody's concerned about. I feel like we're on a tipping point here in Alpharetta. And they're very worried about the decisions we make. And maybe I'm overblown with it, but I've been called that before, been accused of that before. But I feel the same passion that I heard from the constituents. And I hope that we look at some of this very carefully before we do a final vote on it. And I'd love to hear more community feedback on it. That would be, for me, that would be really helpful. Thank you.
Councilman Hyde.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Kern, I do appreciate the effort on the document. There is some great information in here. I think I want to commend our Community Development Department and yourself on the process for advertising and making this available for citizen input. I think many of us up here recognize the danger of when any of us says everybody agrees one way, the way I think, when in fact I think any of us can look at this document and find a different slice of what we like and don't like. But yeah, blanket statements sometimes fall a little flat when we put the effort that we put into to create this document and the update of the 2040. Just as an aside, I've talked to many people, so everybody can't be everybody because I hear different things than maybe other council members sitting up here in terms of how we've been going about our city. You know, the fact that we're the #1 city or #2 city in Georgia or the U.S., you know, we can set all that aside. I know there's a great deal of pride in this city about how it's progressed and developed and continues to do so. And in fact, this document bears out many of the things that we have accomplished. And I think, you know, I do have questions for you. You just stood there and listened to a lot of talk, but I have some questions. You know, one of the things I noticed, and I'm looking for context, Mr. Kern, either within Alpharetta or within neighboring communities. One of the things that really jumped out at me in this document was that from 2020 to 2025, our median age has gone from 33 years old to 41 years old. And I think of all the arcane and granular statistics and info in here, that one was an eye-opener for me. We used to be a young, youthful town. We're more of a middle-aged town now. Now, how does that compare to our surrounding communities, if you know? You may not be able to comment. You should probably tell me if you can comment in terms of putting a context about where we are versus surrounding communities. That may not have been your charge. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't have the numbers in other community. I have kind of an anecdotal assumption that trend is happening in neighboring communities like Roswell and Johns Creek, but I don't know what those numbers are, so I would hate to throw something out there that's wrong. But yeah, that is a statistic that we have seen in other similar communities to Alpharetta in their life cycle as a community, meaning as they've grown and as they've become more desirable and costs have gone up we have seen that in other similar type communities, that same kind of transformation.
Is the aging of Alpharetta and surrounding communities being driven in large part just by the housing costs?
Yeah, I think it's safe to assume that that's definitely an ingredient within it. I think there is a population migration north in the metro. If you follow, you know, the Woodstocks, the Cummings, the Dawsonvilles, those are all, you know, they're big peaks. So I think, yeah, there's a migration that's happening in the broader region. But yes, sir.
Again, asking about context, I'm on page 10 of your document that's in the packet, and it's consistent with what's in our monthly financial updates, and it's showing our tax base at 49% residential, 51% commercial. And I've always operated under the number traditionally, certainly pre-COVID, that we were about 60-40 in favor of commercial. And is that consistent with what your understanding is that ratio has come down in terms of the commercial tax base supporting all of the amenities and things that we pay for here in Alpharetta?
Yeah, I believe that's correct, Councilman. This is pulling straight from the financial report. So I think, yeah, you can kind of compare year by year and see how that segmentation is. And I know this was brought up a couple times with that segmentation compared to other neighboring communities as well, and how much higher residential might be in some of the neighboring communities. But yes, yes, sir.
Well, again, under good information to back up conclusions, under workforce presence, you've got actual case studies of where offices up and offices down pre-COVID to current. And then we get to page 23, and we got within the housing market, you've got the population graphs with the decennial census and then an estimate on 2025. And I see that since 2020, we have grown by 667 people. Is that consistent with some of the surrounding communities? I saw some data a year ago where actually it indicated our surrounding communities have actually declined in population, and we were the only one with a net gain from the 2020.
The 2020 census was an interesting one because I think some of the data, within that time, we were exploring those same differences in numbers and.
Well, if we were underreported in 2020, then we actually have had a decline in our population.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the assumption I would draw.
Mm-hmm.
So, so if our population's only gone up 667 per page 23, and on page 29, we've only had 1,355 building permits over the last 5 years, or 271 building permits per year, we're actually not even growing that fast. Is that an assumption of yours, or?
Yes, sir. I think the combination of that and the household size has decreased. If you look at the 2000 to 2025, that number has dropped. So smaller households combined with the stabilizing or the dip in permits would be my assumption with growth.
I know there's a perception that's easy to feed that we're growing like crazy, and traffic is increasing everywhere within Alpharetta. But when you look at the 27,000 population increase from 2000 to 2010, and then another 13,000 on top of that to 2020, our building permits back in 2000 were averaging 600 plus per year, not 200 per year. So is that related to the fact that we don't have raw land to develop now, and we're in a redevelopment mode? You got to tear something down in order to build something?
I believe so. I mean, if you look at a map of 2000, there were some very big green fields that were, just a lot of acreage that was a greenfield redevelopment, as opposed to the few that are left and the redevelopment, grayfield redevelopment that might be more cautiously approached today.
Well, as a land use planner and in terms of this document, if we look at statistics and work through them and see that we're the phase of Alpharetta is in at this stage and going forward isn't development of raw land, but rather redevelopment. I think of Harry's Farmers Market. I think of the Hamilton Hotel. I think of where the gas station used to be for Liberty Hall, on and on and on and on. I think of Portman and tearing down an office building. What do you see from a land use planning, from this document giving us a North Star, what the challenges are for redevelopment, which I think is a defining factor for this council?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think to circle back to Councilman Dorito's point, I think one of the challenges is knowing, when to not. The strength of, I like to view places of strength as having different options, having not too much of the same thing. So when we put, think of Great Oaks or Sanctuary Park, stuff is cyclical. Same with fashion, same with maybe the what they are and what they were built as. They might come back around where that's the thing that people want, in 20 years. It's tough to know. So I think when we think of a focus area, it's not just maybe putting a laser on, say, Great Oaks and saying, let's redevelop it into mixed use. It might be like, let's focus on it. Let's figure out what should be done here, and maybe the outcome of that focus is let's leave it as it is, because that's more valuable, and that keeps a broader pie of options within land use than if we were to change it. So I think that's a big part of it. And then just knowing where and why, Councilman Hypes, I think would be, and that's where more detailed study into where are the places that kind of need that match lit of energy, and we need to signal that for the sake of the surrounding area, and where do we not? Where do we want to kind of say, no, this doesn't need to be, turned into something that we may not be able to undo. So that's a further case by case of its own, but I think more thinking can be done about what are the places of pruning and why, and if we don't do it, what's going to happen versus how many of these can survive on their own and maybe have an upswing in the next cycle of use.
Well, where the rubber hits the road for 2045 plan is, do you see a blending and melding of these mixed-use nodes? Now, when I spoke to you, I was kind of talking about how we've not centralized like a Greenville, but we've developed mixed-use nodes around the city. And, can residential bedroom communities coexist side by side with mixed-use nodes? Are we creating that model? Are we perfecting that model? What from a land use planning, how do you see that?
Yeah, I think, in my mind, I mean, Alpharetta's doing an incredible job of creating and perfecting that model. I had a colleague a couple years ago say the public spaces around here and some of the activated areas that the city has largely led on reminded him of Savannah, and that's an incredible compliment for a community that a lot of these spaces have emerged in recent years, and it's being compared to a place like it. So I think what's been done, there's a quote I like where so much of city life happens between the building. What is the world between the buildings? And I think the city does an incredible job of what are these spaces where community life can happen. And I think as long as you're leading in that, wherever it is in the city, that's a kind of a timeless strategy that humanizes and makes a place enviable and desirable, and some of the economic and positive land use actions typically follow.
Well, for my part, my hope is that as we take this land use plan document, we're not having people activate spaces, but we're creating spaces that activate people. And I think it's a good document, and I would encourage everyone out there listening and in the audience to access it and go through it. It has really good information. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, guys.
Any other questions for Mr. Kearns? Question? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Kearns.
Thank you, Mayor.
Ms. Orehusky, do we have any public comment cards on this item?
No, sir, we do not.
You said there were none?
Correct.
Okay, just wanted to make sure before I called to see if anyone wants to come forward and speak on this item. Now's your opportunity to do so. I see no one coming forward, so I'll close public comment.
Mr. Mayor, just before you call for a vote, I think I need to read the resolution.
That's a good idea. That's why you make the big bucks.
A resolution by the Mayor and Council of the City of Alpharetta, Georgia, for the transmittal of the 2045 Comprehensive Plan to the Georgia Department of Community Affairs and to the Atlanta Regional Commission for official review.
Thank you, ma'am. Do we have a motion from council?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, I'd offer a motion this evening to approve PH-26-09, 2045 Alpharetta Comprehensive Plan and Transmittal Hearing as presented this evening.
I have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Merkel, second, I believe that was Councilman Hypes? Second by Councilman Hypes. Any discussion? Councilwoman Reeves.
I just wanted to make sure that if we hear from the public over the next couple of weeks, that if we vote to transmit this, can we make any adjustments to it, should we wish to?
Ms. Eswine?
I'm going to defer to Kathy and staff just to see if they know that off the top of their head. Otherwise, I'll need some time to look into.
If there were significant comments, we'd have to resubmit it back to the state, so that wouldn't meet our deadline. So tonight is the resolution to approve for us to go ahead and transmit to the state. But if what changes, during that review time, we would have to resubmit back to the state.
Okay. There's been a lot of work put into this, and I really do appreciate a lot of the work that's gone into this. And it did capture a lot of what we as Alpharettans value, our parks and our trees and so much of what has been done by you all and previous councils, and is really good. Some of the focus in here, I think, is and I think that Councilman Hypes referred to it, the 25 to 34-year-old. And I'm in the baby boomers, and we are the pig in the python. So as we go through, we are dragging out all of the data with us. So the country is older than it was in 2000. I checked it out, and I just said, well, what's going on in the nation? And the nation is just older. And so I think that when you look at our statistics, we kind of have to look at it in the context of the baby boomers came along, and there's a smaller cohort after them. My concerns certainly can be addressed as we look at each application coming down the road. But I would be remiss if I did not say it, and I hope you all don't take offense to it. So much of what is in here is very good, and I will be supporting it.
Councilman Rito.
You know, I just feel a need to say this. You know, a lot of discussion by my fellow members of council, even before tonight, leading up to this discussion, because a lot of time and effort has gone into this, a lot of input from everybody, the community. Community development's done an awesome job in leading this and the process and everything. I hope the people we represent up here on this dais that put it here in a position of responsibility understand that these discussions, these questions are very intentional to make sure that we're making the right decisions for the long-term economic viability of the city, and that we maintain the level of services from, whether it be police, fire, public works, you name it, and that we're able to do that and be financially, fiscally responsible in the process. We don't just rubber stamp things. We have turned down development applications for different reasons. A lot of things we're bringing up tonight, and remember, this is a blueprint. This is not something that is, you know, black and white that we have to follow. It's a blueprint. And so, but I do think that it causes us to discuss the future of the city and how we want to see this developed out, so that all of us up on this dais, when we leave this council, that we're good stewards of the tax dollars, that we keep the taxes low, that we develop the city out, or redevelop the city, as Councilman Hypes talked about, which is really what the phase we're in right now, is done with the best interests of the city long-term in mind, taking into consideration the impacts of the surrounding communities and what that impact on our traffic it has, transportation needs, affordable housing. I think if we had the answer to affordable housing in the city of Alpharetta, everyone up here would be saying, let's do it, right? It's a difficult challenge. And I always say to people that ask me in the streets, my neighbors, maybe people in the audience or watching tonight, my response to that is, what do you consider affordable housing in the city of Alpharetta? Because as was pointed out this evening by Mr. Kern, our home values have dramatically increased over the years. And why is that? It's because of the way that the previous governing bodies and this current governing body and community development and all the various, 550 professionals in the city working together to make sure that we sustain city as an attractive place to raise a family, to build our school system, to make sure that the infrastructure is not overbuilt to attract too much traffic here. And we're doing everything we possibly can in a very successful city. As I said earlier, you build it, they will come, and that's what's happening. But they're coming here for good reason, because this is a great city to raise your children in. It still is. And one of the statistics, I think Councilman Heiss pointed this out, or questioned this, even in this presentation, I think 24 to 35-year-olds, John, are not coming to the city, or I forget what it says in the report. But we have to figure out how we attract that younger professional. North Point Mall might be part of that answer. And I hope the residents understand that whatever we decide to redevelop the North Point Mall corridor, it's in the best interest of trying to provide housing options to that population that we're losing right now. So anyway, I just want to say, like, this is a great blueprint, but I guarantee you this council and probably future councils are going to do the right thing. This is what's been great about this city. We've always had government leaders who have worked in a collaborative fashion to achieve the things we're sitting in today as probably the best city in the South, if not in the country, frankly, from my perspective. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Is that a yes or a no? Oh, okay. Well, I haven't discussed yet. I've been pretty silent. So I appreciate, one, our staff's efforts to pull this off. Was it perfect? Absolutely not. You know, there's been a lot of changes, and it's hard to get people to respond to inquiries, and we've been through this numerous times together. So it is difficult. It is a shame. But then again, it's a shame that most of our people don't even vote in elections. That breaks my heart too, because it has the same kind of impact. So I just want to say, for one, it's always been clear to me that once I became mayor, my goal was, and if you've heard me speak publicly, I want Alpharetta to be the best city in the state of Georgia to both build a business and raise a family, because I think that unique balance is what has been our special sauce. There's a lot of great cities around us. Milton's a great city. Johns Creek's a great city. Roswell, and you know, there's a lot of good cities. Most of them are sleepy bedroom communities, and that's okay. That's a nice city. They're great cities. What makes Alpharetta different is that people move here not just because it's a great place to raise a family, but because it's a great place to build business too. People moved here from all over the world. They got job relocations into the city of Alpharetta. And 4 years later, when AT&T or Fiserv decided to transfer them back to the home office, they said no. They liked what we had here in Alpharetta. And to be able to do that is special. And that's why our housing costs have gone up, and we're having so many of these other issues. But those are the challenges that we accept as a community. And I appreciate all the diverse opinions, because we have a very diverse community with lots of different opinions, and they all need to be represented. And that's why we have 7 of us, not 1. I will point out that while it may seem drastic to some people, but as I listened to that presentation, there was only one area of concern that was addressed, and that was Royal Oaks. The others we've already moved on. We already had North Point. We've already had the people in Windward that want amenities and more activity in the Windward corridor. The only one I've identified is, well, we know North Point. We've already identified that. But Royal Oak, that was the only other one I saw. So I don't think if people are out there worried that we're going to just municipalize everything and turn it into just all these little fiefdoms around city with mixed use. No. But we also have to understand, if we're going to have a significant office park community, we have to give them a reason to be in Alpharetta. That's the difference between the buildings they built in 1985. Back then, AT&T said, you come to work 5 days a week, and this is where you're going to work. And you would commute to get there, because they were well-paid and well-trained and a very successful company. Nowadays, to get people into the buildings, to be productive, to have those personal interactions that drive all of our economy, because our small businesses survive on those big businesses. And if we lose them, we lose a lot of our small businesses and a lot of what makes Alpharetta special. So I don't think people should be quite as concerned as perhaps Katie Reeves ran into on the, election, knocking doors, you get great feedback. And I've done that myself, and I don't dismiss the feedback you got, but those are also only the people you got. And so I think as long as we have a savvy electorate and we have very highly educated, significant members on our elected council that are going to be very decisive in making sure that we follow that blueprint. Is this going to be set in stone? No. That's why we update it all the time. This is a blueprint, and there's things that can be added, and it doesn't take another study. It just takes one person bringing a good idea, but also understand, we don't own these properties. Everything great that's ever been built in the city of Alpharetta wasn't built by the city. It was built by the private sector. Avalon was built by the private sector. All of these big, fun things that people go to, Ameris Amphitheater wasn't built by the city. And so we have to understand that a lot of the opportunities are going to be opportunities that were presented to us. We had a plan for Brookside, but it wasn't us that came forward with that plan. It was Portman, because they saw an opportunity to take our vision and build it for us without the taxpayers having to do it. That's enough. I talked. Okay. All those in favor of the motion to approve, please vote yes. And it does pass unanimously. So the next item up, public hearing, is PH-26-05, Unified Development Code text amendments for pickleball courts. Director Cook, I see you're going to give your coworker a break on this one.
While Ms. Cook sets up, I'm going to go ahead and read the ordinance, Mayor. An ordinance by the mayor and the council of the city of Alpharetta, Georgia, to amend Article 1 and 2 of the Unified Development Code of the city of Alpharetta, Georgia, to add definitions and regulations pertaining to pickleball courts, to repeal conflicting ordinances, and for other purposes.
So, there we go. This next item is consideration of text amendments to the Unified Development Code to amend Article 1 and 2 related to pickleball courts. And staff is recommending text amendments to the Unified Development Code to add definitions, which I've put the definitions here on the screen, and to add definitions in Section 2.7 miscellaneous regulation, to add regulations pertaining to siting requirements and design standards for pickleball courts. The proposed text amendments are intended to balance the demand for pickleball courts, neighborhood compatibility concerns, and legal risk. And with the growing popularity of pickleball, the city has experienced an uptick in questions and complaints over noise related to pickleball courts. In fact, we had Glen Abbey and Claremont subdivisions, for example. Their tennis courts have been converted to pickleball courts, resulting in numerous noise complaints to the city's police department. And currently, when we looked at our UDC, it allows a clubhouse, a swimming pool, or community recreation facilities serving a subdivision as an accessory use, but it doesn't distinguish different types of residential uses. And so some of the research that the residents had asked us to look into, and they also provided us a lot of great information, we did find that the noise from the ball that's used for pickleball is quite louder than if it's a tennis ball that's being played. Also looked at the American Planning Association zoning practice, managing pickleball noise through zoning, and it provided a framework for jurisdictions to address emerging issues related to pickleball. We also looked at surrounding jurisdictions. We didn't find any pickleball regulations, so mostly what we're presenting to you is what we found, which was recommended by the American Planning Association. And there were some recommendations they had about monitoring the type of paddle that's used, but that's not something that code enforcement would be able to monitor. Of course, if this is accepted, what I'm proposing, there would be conditional use standards that would be attached to any conditional use that you approved. And they recommend that the zoning ordinance amendments that are recommended, including defining to pickleball as a use, and then establishing distances for a 3-tiered permitting structure where there's a prohibited zone, a conditional zone, and a by right zone. So I'll go over that real quick. So here's the definitions. And the reason I handed this out, and you'll see something that's highlighted, that means that the city attorney's office looked at it, and this was after it went into the packets. There's no substantial changes. They just wanted to make sure that we cleaned up some of the text that we put together. So you can see pickleball is defined an activity where participants utilize a racket or a paddle to strike and volley a hollow plastic ball over a net within the bounds of a pickleball court. And the reason this was changed to within the bounds is when we presented to Planning Commission, and there was a unanimous approval recommended to City Council, they did want to make sure that we pinpointed that it includes temporary nets and permanent nets. So this is the language that was recommended by our city attorney's office. And then we have the definition of a pickleball court, which includes temporary and non-temporary. What we did find also is with pickleball courts, sometimes they're using a tennis court part of the time, and so they're just moving in nets that aren't attached to the pickleball court. Sometimes it's striped. So we wanted to make sure that we define that to where it is temporary as well as permanent. Then we have the miscellaneous regulations. And you see that the yellow here is removing the definitions. It's just that our city attorney said we shouldn't repeat, just cleaning it up, putting the definitions in the definition, but doesn't change the definition. Then we also have the siting requirements. We have a prohibited zone. If it's 0 to 250 feet from a dwelling, it would be prohibited. And we had actually, when we presented to the Planning Commission, we found that some prohibit within 350 feet. We presented to the Planning Commission, we did let them know that we've found ordinances that go from 250 to 350 for the prohibited, and they did recommend going with the 250 feet. And then we also have 2, which is considered the conditional zone. That would be greater than 250 feet to 800 feet. That would require a conditional use approval by the council. And then 3, the by right zone would be greater than 800 feet. And the city attorney's office just wanted us to reiterate each time that when every portion of the playing surface is greater than the 800 feet from any dwelling. So that lays out the 3 different zones where it's prohibited, where it would be conditional use, and as well as where it would be allowed. We also put design standards in the code, design standards that would be required to look at if there was a conditional use that was approved or considered. We also added, you can see that the city attorney just added the word noise to each of A, B, C, which is under noise barriers when required. And then finally, the enforcement variances and the violations. So under enforcement, violations of quiet equipment requirements, city attorney just wanted to clean that up and add that language. But again, nothing changed. It's changed significantly from what the Planning Commission was recommending. This item was considered at the May 7th Planning Commission meeting. There were several public comments with 4 in favor and 2 in opposition. And in general, they provided comments that they appreciated the city was adding these regulations and that we had gone through the research due to the noise impacts. We had one commenter that indicated the HOA should regulate pickleball courts and asked for clarification as to whether the ordinance was retroactive. And we discussed this at the Planning Commission. Basically, the way this is written is that if it's been used, if you have a tennis court that's been used even on a temporary basis prior to the adoption of this ordinance, then that is under the grandfather clause. So this would be for new conversions, new use of a tennis court or other court that was created. And after discussion, the Planning Commission recommended approval, subject to just a few changes, and the recommendation was 7-0. But I am that concludes staff presentation. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to try to answer those for you.
Councilman Hypes.
Thank you, Mayor. Director Cook, I'm going to follow up some things that we discussed. That's to let people know I'm not ambushing you. Everywhere in this document where it says dwelling or residential, I feel very strongly that we should not confine this to dwelling or residential. We've just had a full discussion on how we're a mixed-use community. Theoretically, in the residential area of the Portman project next to the outdoor dining that we just approved tonight, there could be a pickleball court on the perimeter of the residential, and there would be no recourse for somebody who's in non-residential under this ordinance. It could happen, with just adjoining property owners between commercial, like Old Milton Commons, and what's right next door out on, or Colony, First Colony. So I really don't understand why we want to confine this just to 250 feet from a dwelling, as opposed to some person who might be trying to enjoy dinner on an outdoor patio at a restaurant, or somebody working in an audience or an office on a Saturday trying to get some work done. Thoughts?
Yeah, so most of the research that we went through, and we also listened to a couple of seminars about the noise and the impacts, but none of that we researched addressed the impacts on office. So as I mentioned to you today, I think we need some time to research that, and we can always, if once we have the research, we can come back and make recommendations, because sometimes, just like the next item before you is going to be an update to the short-term rental ordinance, there may be changes that we bring forward over time.
Well, I wouldn't get too limited by office as opposed to an occupied structure. Again, I mean, if somebody invests heavily in having outdoor
Right.
dining with a patio, and right next door in a mixed-use environment is somebody wants to build their pickleball court, and they're in compliance other than the 250 feet from the occupied structure, I want those folks to have recourse under our ordinance to say, you're killing me here.
Yeah.
I've got a business.
And we'll study those impacts. I'm just, haven't had time to study what the impact would be, or any issues, and also discuss with our city attorney. We've spent most of the time, like I stated, on looking at the impacts to residential structures. So I don't know if adding that, what it could impact within the city, but we'll certainly do that research.
As you're looking at it, my vantage point is, I personally think, HOA governance is closest to the people, that there's recourse within an HOA. It may not always work out, but it's for the people who don't have recourse against the pickleball court owners, which may be outside the residential area, which then just begs the question, why do we want to limit it to residential? So
Understood.
I'm looking to provide relief to people who can't get it elsewhere through this ordinance. So, thank you.
Any questions? Councilman Dorito?
Mr. Cook, and I did speak to you about this, so I'm not ambushing you as well. But can you speak to the discussion we had regarding pickleball courts in neighborhoods that are maybe temporary, that eventually, after this, if this gets approved by the council, these ordinance provisions, how that would apply to those structures that might become permanent after the ordinance is passed? I mean, is there, I'll let you explain.
Yeah.
You told me, so.
So it would be grandfathered, the way that this ordinance is written. If a HOA or non-HOA is currently using a court for pickleball, even if it's just, they bring out the nets and then they put them back and then go back to tennis, if they have been using it prior to the adoption, then we would consider them grandfathered. If they added and built another court, then that's an expansion of being in the grandfathered category, which would then have to meet the requirements of the ordinance. So anything there.
Expansion of existing recreational.
Yes.
facility?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Councilwoman Reeves?
Is that just a determination by us, or is that legally, would we be, or does the law put us sort of in that position?
It's actually kind of both. So the standard that Kathy was citing in answering Councilman Dorito's question goes directly to our nonconformities section in the UDC, where we specifically call out nonconformities, nonconforming uses, honoring those, but also prohibiting the expansion. But a grandfathered use is something actually used kind of as an affirmative defense by someone when a government seeks to enforce regulations against them. If we were to make a grandfathering determination, obviously Kathy is doing that work on the front end, not necessarily just because it's an affirmative defense that's raised. That's legal context usually when it gets raised, but it would be an independent, fact-specific analysis for every property that we were looking at, regulating, enforcing against, and ultimately, before any enforcement action is taken, I know Kathy's looking at it with her staff. If it rose to the level of getting to court, then it would be the affirmative defense from a legal standpoint.
Thank you. And thank you for taking this up and spending time on this, because I know I've heard a lot from community
Sure,
members. I'm sure
yeah.
others have too.
And I think they actually reached out to me last summer, so it's taken a while.
Any other questions for Director Cook? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Zora Husky, do we have any public comment cards?
We do. They are both in opposition.
Okay.
Mr. Saha, if you would come forward, state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Jed Saha. I live at 12305 Claremont Avenue in Alpharetta, Georgia. Thank you for addressing this issue, Council. I know it's not an easy topic to navigate, and it's such a small thing compared to the 2045 blueprint just reviewed. So I apologize, but this is an important topic. I'm here because I am a representative of the Claremont HOA, which was presenting here a couple months ago at City Council, and I was appointed along with 3 other folks to look into court usage and what we can do to be good neighbors. My request is to ask the council to consider excluding existing HOAs from the ordinance's scope. HOA residents already have recourse to their own HOA processes and can resolve concerns internally, or should be able to, and that includes replacing HOA leadership if needed. And I don't think all HOAs are the same. I think Glen Abbey has 4 courts running constantly, and I don't think their HOA listened to them. From what I've spoke to Matt and Cammie, I feel for them because I don't think they were treated well. I would argue that other HOAs such as ours, we only do 10 hours a month on single court. We surveyed residents after we did a trial. We did a 10-month trial. We put in 7-month trial. We put in rules such as restricting hours. We use quiet balls. So that we could be good neighbors. I play pickleball a lot. I'm the captain of my pickleball team, but I play at North Park because we also have a rule that says we don't allow organized play. So all my practices and matches are at North Park. So I just don't think that all HOAs are the same. Back to the point to where Councilman Hypes mentioned, I think this ordinance makes sense to where individuals have no recourse, such as businesses and homes outside an HOA. To modify it to be occupied structures, because I think that makes the most sense. The way the ordinance is written, though, could effectively halt pickleball growth in existing neighborhoods. Most communities here are over 10 years old and cannot realistically relocate courts. And I think HOAs should be able to decide how to use amenities that the residents already pay for. While the city does offer public places to play, demand already exceeds capacity. On a typical Tuesday night at North Park, please come meet me there. All 12 courts are full, 48 players, and at least 48 paddles waiting to play. Thank you for hearing my viewpoint.
Thanks, sir. We Were there any others?
Yes, and I apologize. This one is in favor. I misread and thought they were both in opposition. I don't want to mispronounce your name. If you would come forward, state your name and address for the record. My name is Nasim Rezvanpour, and I live in 12330 Claremont Avenue. So I want to first thank the City Staff Planning Commission and the Council for the significant effort that has gone into this ordinance. The proposed ordinance clearly recognizes that outdoor pickleball noise is fundamentally different than tennis court and can affect nearby homes. So I'm one of the neighbors of Jeet Saha who talked right now about the HOAs, and they are different. And I would argue, no, they are not different. It's been 1 year for me that sending email to our HOA, but nobody listened to me. We live 150 feet from the tennis courts that are being used for pickleball right now. During the previous hearing, several residents, including myself, we explained how the repetitive impulsive noise has affected our daily life. However, I know that Planning Commission also discussed this concern and discussed that Alpharetta has many appropriate park location for pickleball. However, under current new ordinance, existing courts currently being used for pickleball may not be subject to the proposed setback and regulations. So I understand that retroactive regulation can be difficult, and I'm not asking the city to ban pickleball. I'm just simply asking the nearby residents not be left without any protections or mitigation options, especially when the proposed ordinance recognize that new courts should be located within 250 feet from the homes. And at minimum, I respectfully ask you, the council, to consider requiring a professional acoustic study for existing or flex court conversion located close to home. So if existing courts are going to function as ongoing pickleball facilities, then nearby residents deserve the same level of review and protection that the ordinance requires for new court. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you. Is that all the cards we have?
Yes, sir, those are all the cards we have.
However, if there is anyone else that would like to come forward, now's your opportunity.
My name is Matt Christensen, and I live in Glen Abbey at 550 Ebley Place. And my family and I live less than 150 feet from those pickleball courts in Glen Abbey. For the past 2 years, the sound has been a constant disturbance to our daily lives. This isn't simply about decibel levels, it's the frequency, the sharp, repetitive, high-pitched impact that cuts through walls, windows, and any attempt at normal life. No Alpharetta resident should be expected to endure that kind of intrusion in their own home. Now, I want to be clear, I'm not an anti-pickleball person. On the contrary, I love the sport, I play. However, we need to be responsible about where the courts are located. I hope we all agree that although pickleball is fun, fun is not adequate rationale to disturb the peace of individuals and their properties here in Alpharetta. In addition, it's not the responsibility of the city of Alpharetta to protect a trendy, fun recreation activity at the detriment of normal living conditions. I fully support the proposed setbacks because the research is clear. Distance is the only reliable way to reduce this type of noise disturbance. Our own experience has shown that relying on an HOA or similar body to do the right thing is not enough. Unfortunately, our HOA ignored our concerns, dismissed our feedback, and ultimately failed to protect our quality of life. These proposed zoning laws will help protect citizens from unnecessary sound disturbances within the residential locations. Alpharetta needs zoning laws that reflect modern recreational trends. Pickleball is growing rapidly, and without updated rules, families like mine are left unprotected. These changes aren't about limiting recreation. They're about ensuring that one group's enjoyment does not come at the expense of another's family's peace, health, and home environment. There's also a responsibility for the city to protect itself. As pickleball continues to expand, so will conflicts like ours. Without clear, proactive zoning, the city risks increased pushback and even potential legal challenges from residents who feel unprotected. I urge you to take this responsibility seriously, to support this zoning change, not just for my family, but for every Alpharetta family who deserves the basic dignity of enjoying their home and property without the constant disruption of noise. No one else should have to go through what we've been living through for the past 2 years. Admittedly, it is a little disappointing that although we agree that the pickleball sound in a residential area is a nuisance, that since we can't grandfather, or since it is grandfathered in, we cannot have an impact on our neighborhood, and we'll have to deal with that separately. However, this proposal for me is a win. I applaud Kathy, Michael, and the staff for the research that they did and the time that they took to come to this conclusion that these zoning parameters are an effective way to control the sound nuisance in the city of Alpharetta. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Good evening. My name's Cammie Christensen. I live at 550 Ebley Place. My husband previously spoke. I also want to thank staff, Kathy Cook, Michael Woodman, and their team for their research and engagement. My hope is that this amendment, when passed, will become a model for across the state and nationwide, because this is a developing and emerging issue. Some of this research has come out within the last 5 months, and it's very new. So I appreciate the professionalism, and especially that the current ordinance is grounded in the distance setback as the most effective way to mitigate sound. We have, our neighborhood has tried to undertake paddle restrictions and ball restrictions and hours, but the fact is that when you lived 150 feet from the courts, you're going to hear every strike inside your home regardless, and that is what we've experienced. So I come tonight to advocate that if the city does not adopt an ordinance regarding pickleball, it leaves decision in the hands of individuals who may be motivated by the love of their sport. As the previous speaker said, not all HOAs are created equally. And that's why we have zoning ordinances at the city level, because we need to have a standard that we believe in at the city of Alpharetta that will be standard for all residents and developments. If the ordinance is not approved, then that leaves residents, similar to research that I brought with me tonight. This is a research study that was published in December 2025 of residents in 245 communities across the nation. And it says, how often does the noise affect your ability to be mindful, rest, be calm, or think? More than half of residents said it constantly affected that. Similarly, enjoying the outdoors or indoors of their home, 60% responded that it did. Talk, socialize, do activities in your home, 43%. Concentrate or work productively, 40%. Sleep undisturbed constantly, 26%. And these are the same impacts that I've experienced in my home, where I'm not able to rest, eat, relax, or enjoy any of my daily activities. My one point of question regarding the ordinance that I've had a discussion with a few staff members as well as council members regarding the expansion from a temporary court to a permanent court. Most courts begin as a temporary striped court with rollable nets. People are experimenting with the activity. They add that to their neighborhood in that manner. And if it is popular, later go through the process of building a permanent court. I would consider that an expansion, going from 2 to 4 temporary courts that are used at times to permanent courts where no other activity can take place in the same space. I would consider that an expansion. I don't think that an expansion has to necessarily be physical space expansion. I would say expansion of use, intensification of use would, to me, seems like an expansion and would be underneath that phrase. So that's my main concern, is that is the life cycle that most pickleball courts go through, unless we have some kind of open space in Alpharetta, which I don't think we do. Most of it's being converted from tennis or other use to pickleball. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, y'all. My name is Beth Shellhouse. I live at 345 Tivadale Court. I just wanted to thank staff for your time considering this. It's an issue that's near and dear to my heart because it affects my family on a daily basis. In the last week, in our own home, at 10:59 p.m., me and my baby were woken in our beds by this pickleball noise. We do have an HOA. I did alert them. I'm not really sure what they are able to do, and it's not on you to regulate that, but I am pleading for you, for your future residents in situations, to not have that happen to anybody else. You wouldn't want it for your family, and please have the consideration for others. I know this isn't considering my situation won't change with this, but I am advocating for those who will be in this situation in the future because it is popular. I do like pickleball myself. I imagine some of y'all do too, and as Councilman Hype said, you're considering what it would be like if you're having dinner and it's disturbing your dinner if you're out to eat. But currently, my family is disturbed in our dinner inside our home by pickleball, and it's not very fun, and I don't wish that on anyone else. Mayor, you referred to Alpharetta being a great place to raise a family, but this circumstance makes it so it's not that great for me to raise my family where I live in my home. So I would appreciate if you consider what it would be like for others and stop this from growing in the future. Just protect everybody so that they can enjoy the quality of life that they moved to Alpharetta for. Thank you.
Thank you. Was that everyone? All right. Do we have a motion from council?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, I'd make a motion this evening to approve PH-26-05 Unified Development Code Text Amendment Pickleball Courts as presented this evening to us.
Second.
Have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Merkel, second by Councilman Dorito. Any discussion? Councilman Hypes?
Thank you, Mayor. This ordinance is going definitely in the right direction. It is a first reading. We will have a second reading at a next or future meeting. But from my point of view, as it's written tonight, especially in light of the testimonials we've heard from the podium, it does not go far enough. It needs to protect not just residents, but it needs to protect business owners. We have 30-foot side and rear setbacks for residential. So you're 30 feet from the edge of a pickleball court that's put on the edge of subdivision is on the property line. So anything that's within the next 220 feet is within that 250 feet zone, if you follow my math. And if it happens to be one of our restaurants that are established and have outdoor patio dining, if it happens to be a retailer who likes to have their doors open and invite the public in, if it happens to be somebody working in a one-story office building and they're trying to prepare a case for trial or trying to get a tax audit done on a Saturday or Sunday, and they're hearing the things that these folks were telling us about, they deserve recourse and protection as well. So I will not support it as written tonight, but certainly will, if it passes, reevaluate my vote in light of any new information that community development brings forward before the next vote.
Any other discussion? Councilman Dorito.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for the residents that came up to speak their heart this evening. As mentioned by one of our residents, the Claremont gentleman, I forgot your name, I'm sorry. This is a tough issue, and I'm glad it was brought to our attention by our residents. I've done a lot of, just like everyone else, done a lot of research in this. A lot of research is provided by the community to us, which is very helpful. I know community development has worked really hard, as Ms. Cook said, for about a year now since this issue was raised. My eyes are wide open as to this issue, not only in Alpharetta, but around the country. I never thought a sport like pickleball would create such a concern as far as the impact on the health and sanctity of people's homes that they should definitely have, particularly in Alpharetta, to live a quiet life and not be disturbed to midnight hours every day and on weekends, and constant noises, as pointed out, the pulsating noise that's very agitating and frankly not good for your health and mental stability from everything I've read. I'm supporting this tonight because I think this is the right thing to do. One of our residents who came up, I think it was Michelle, if I got your name right, spoke about her infant, and I think she spoke at a past meeting about that. That laid heavily on my mind when I first heard about this issue, when our residents came forward to express concerns, in particularly Glen Abbey, and that putting myself in those residents' shoes, if I had an infant, even a young child, or an elderly person, or even a high school student to come home and do their homework with some peace and quiet with their family and relax and enjoy family time and maybe, you know, express your faith on a weekend, whatever it may be. This disturbs that, and it does impact you mentally over a period of time. From all studies around the country, if you look at it. And if this helps one person not have this impact, this is the right thing to do. By all means, if this can be improved over time, as Councilman Hypes talked about, I'm all for that as well, because I do think we can strengthen this ordinance. Maybe even by the second reading, we can straighten it. You know, I know there's a lot of people out there that love the sport of pickleball. There might even be more people in favor of us not doing this that are those that are, you know, wanting us to do this. And I hope this is not only a model for the country, but I hope this is a model for other HOAs in the city of Alpharetta. I hope even the Glen Abbey HOA is impacted by this decision of the city council to send the right message of leadership that we want to protect the residents' peaceful enjoyment of their homes within the confines of their homes and raise their children in a peaceful environment that they want to raise them in, and leave pickleball to areas that are not going to impact them, their peace and quiet, as well as their mental impact on their mental state. Because, you know, you lose sleep and you're up all night, you don't sleep right, it's not good for you. So I think this is the right thing, right direction. Ms. Cook, thank you for all the work you and your staff put into this. Thank you to the residents who have helped direct us on this, because really this change is being done by the efforts of the community, and that's what government's all about. So thank you very much.
Any other discussion? Councilman Driscoll.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I don't have anything to add other than the way that the residents brought it forward, the way that it was presented, the concerns. I just applaud you because I know when something's really bothering you, and it's really easy to get pointed rather than staying objective to what's the best for the city. So just thank you. Our inbox fills up. And when it fills up with information that is truly for the betterment of everybody, I just want to say thank you on both sides of that. So,
If there's no other discussion, all those in favor of the motion, please vote yes. And it does pass 5-1. So the next item on public hearing agenda is the first reading for the consideration of text amendments to the Unified Development Code, Section 1.4, definitions, in UDC Section 2.7, miscellaneous regulation. No, that's the wrong one. PH-26-07, Unified Development Code, text amendments, short-term rentals.
Thank you, Mayor. This next item is consideration of text amendments to the Unified Development Code and Code of Ordinances related to short-term rentals. The city's short-term rental ordinance was approved in January of 2025, and the permitting process, we rolled it out in May of 2025. The ordinance allows short-term rentals in residential zoning districts with a 5% cap in a platted subdivision and no short-term rentals located adjacent to each other. The annual licensing and operation regulations were included in the ordinance, and to date, we've had 40 short-term rental license applications submitted, and 33 have met the regulations, so 33 have been issued. And I think at the time, back in January, we thought we had over 100, because we hadn't purchased the software at that time. It was just kind of a snapshot. But what we found is we had a lot of short-term rentals because we didn't have an ordinance in place where it was just a basement that was being rented, or it was a room within a household. So the majority of what we thought was a dwelling short-term rental was actually just a room in the house. So we've had to go through that process to make sure that owners know that that is not permitted. So our recommendation tonight is some changes to make sure it's very clear. It wasn't allowed previously, and even when we put the January 2025 ordinance in place, it did not allow the rental of a room. It had to be the entire dwelling. You couldn't have two families within one dwelling. So the language that we're recommending would help with that. The other change that we're bringing forward is when we adopted this in January 2025, we did not advertise the downtown zoning districts, and that was just inadvertently, we left that out. So we're trying to, we knew that there could be something where we come back, so we're just trying to correct that also. So looking at 2.7.1, we're looking at adding this language here and this is already in the Code of Ordinances, so we're just carrying it over. So if somebody's looking in the UDC, they can also see it within the UDC. No short-term rentals shall be permitted for apartments, tents, yurts, truck campers, trailers, or other similar portable shelters, but not including accessory dwelling units associated with a dwelling for sale, detached, or attached. No short-term rental shall offer individual rooms for rent, nor shall any short-term rental offer for rent less than the entirety of the single-family dwelling unit or accessory dwelling unit. Again, this is just, we're not changing anything with this language. It was already in the Code of Ordinances. We just, because we want to now make sure it's in the Unified Development Code, we have to bring that forward. Just for clarification. And then, within the Code of Ordinances, working on the clarification of the same issue that we saw with so many applicants that were not permitted, we're just adding to number 6, no short-term rental shall offer individual rooms for rent, nor shall any short-term rental offer for rent less than the entirety of a single-family dwelling unit or accessory dwelling unit. Again, if you would have read our code previously, you would have found this information that it is not allowed to rent one room within the dwelling, so we're not changing anything. It's just clarification. This item was considered at the May 7th Planning Commission meeting. There were no public comments. After discussion, the Planning Commission did recommend unanimously approval to you. And if you have any questions, I'll be glad to try to answer those.
Do we have any questions for Director Cook? Thank you, ma'am.
Mayor, can I go ahead and read the ordinance?
Please do that.
An ordinance by the Mayor and Council of the City of Alpharetta, Georgia, to amend Article 2 and Appendix A, Alpharetta Downtown Code of the Unified Development Code of the City of Alpharetta, Georgia, and Article 15 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Alpharetta, Georgia, to add clarification regarding the use of single-family dwelling unit and accessory dwelling unit as a short-term rental, to assign short-term rentals as permitted and conditional uses in certain zoning districts, to repeal conflicting ordinances, and for other purposes.
Thank you, Ms. Eswine.
We do not have any comment cards.
However, if anyone would like to come forward and speak on this item, now's your opportunity to do so. I do not see anyone coming forward, so we'll close public comment. Do I have a motion from council?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, you do. I'm going to offer a motion this evening to approve the PH-2607 Unified Development Code text amendments, short-term rentals. as presented by staff this evening.
Second.
Have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Markle, a second by Councilwoman Reeves. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please vote yes. And it passes unanimously, so we'll move right along. Let's see. On the printed agenda, the next few items were the ones I had mentioned that have already been deferred, so we'll move on to new business. Under new business, first item is invitation to bid 26-012 sidewalk construction on Cummings Street, West Side Parkway, DeVore Road. Director Sisevich, it's about time you had a voice.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight for you are sidewalk projects associated with the Alpha Loop Park Bond project that we had. We finished Roswell Street, Kingery Lane. This is the other section, DeVore Road, ready for a quick trip. And we also have the Cummings Street sidewalk project, which was the T-Plus2 project. So we went out to bid, had a very good turnout. 7 bids came in. And Amshiv Construction at $1,891,097.27 was 20 cents, was the low bid, and we're looking at 300 days to complete the work. DeVore Road will have a 12-foot wide sidewalk because it's part of the Alpha Loop, which is a standard, and the sidewalk on West Side Parkway and Cummings Street will be 6 feet wide. And also included in the scope of work on West Side Parkway is adding a right turn lane onto Cummings Street from West Side, because in the mornings it backs up through lane with the school there. We're basically going to remove a median, a small narrow landscape median, and restripe an existing one to accommodate this. So we're going to work within the existing curb and gutter.
So just to clarify, where is that extra right turn lane?
On West Side Parkway, I got a picture with 1,000 words.
Going south? Okay.
Yes.
Yep. I just wanted to be able to visualize
West Side Parkway
it.
here, Cummings there.
Gotcha.
This landscape median will be removed.
Much needed.
Yep.
Thank you. Any other questions from council? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Ms. Orhusky, do we have any public comment cards?
No, sir, we do not.
However, if anyone wants to come forward and speak about the Cummings Street road improvements, now's your chance. I don't see anyone coming forward, so we'll close public comment. Do I have a motion from council?
Yes, Mayor. I make a motion that we award ITB 26-012 for sidewalk construction on Cummings Street, West Side Parkway, and DeVore Road to Amshiv Construction, an amount totaling $1,891,097.20, and authorize the mayor to execute all necessary documents.
Have a motion by Councilwoman Reeves. Do we have a second? Second by Councilman Hypes. Any discussion? Now I'm confused. Are we ready for a vote? Okay. All those in favor of the item, please vote yes. And it passes unanimously, so we'll move right along to the Crabapple Government Building roof replacement.
Yes, Mayor and Council, this project was part of the FY26 mid-year budget amendment. We're going to replace the Crabapple roof at Crabapple Government Center. We received 3 bids. $64,000 was $559.56 was the low bid. We're looking at notice to proceed from completion about 2 weeks. So quick turnaround.
Thank you, sir. Do we have any questions for Director Sisevich? Ms. Orhusky, do we have any public comment cards?
No, sir, we do not.
However, if you'd like to come forward and speak on this, now's your chance. Don't see anyone coming forward, so we'll close public comment. Do I have a motion from council?
Yes, Mayor. I make a motion that we award the Crabapple Government Building Roof Replacement Project to Hopewell Roofing and Restoration in an amount totaling $64,559.56, and authorize the mayor to execute all necessary documents.
Have a motion by Councilmember Reeves. Do we have a second?
Second.
And second by Mayor Pro Tem Markle. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please vote yes. Councilman Driscoll, I think, there we go. It's unanimous.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Thank you, Pete. Next item is the invitation to bid 26-010, ADA Alpharetta Active Adult Center Parking Lot Improvements, CDBG. Director Morgan Rogers.
Good
Time
evening,
for
Mayor and Council.
slide.
As always, it's a pleasure to be here with you tonight. We're at tonight asking for consideration and approval to award a bid to Summit Constructions and Development for the ADA, for improving the ADA parking lot at the Alpharetta Adult Activity Adult Center in an amount not to exceed $262,350. This, if you're familiar with North Park, the first parking lot, if you're coming off of Cogburn, the first parking lot on the right services mainly the Adult Activity Center, but it also services 12 pickleball courts as well as 3 tennis courts there at North Park. We have inadequate ADA parking there for a crowd that is 55 and over. We were applied for and received a community development block grant for that through, which is a state award through Fulton County. We bid that project to an invitation to bid. We had 6 people that six companies that replied to it. Summit was the lowest and is qualified to do the work. So we're asking for approval tonight of this. Just so you know, the city is putting in $152,350, and we're getting $110,000 from the Community Development Block Grant. That comes to a 41-59 split. I'm glad to answer any questions that you may have.
Do we have any questions? Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
Ms. Orhusky, any public comment cards?
We do not have any.
However, if you'd like to come forward and speak, now's your chance. See no one, we'll close public comment. Do I have a motion from council?
Yes, Mayor, I move the council award ITB 26-010 for ADA Alpharetta Active Adult Center parking lot improvements to Summit Construction and Development LLC in an amount not to exceed $262,350.40, of which $110,000 of that is grant funding, and authorize the mayor to execute all necessary documents.
I have a motion by Councilman
Second.
Hypes. Was that a second by Councilmember Reeves?
Was.
Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please vote yes. And it does pass unanimously, so we'll move right along. Next item is the ordinance for offenses and miscellaneous provisions ordinance text amendments. Ms. Eswine, would you read the ordinance aloud, please?
Thank you, Mayor. An ordinance by the Mayor and Council of the City of Alpharetta, Georgia, to amend Chapter 30 of the Code of the City of Alpharetta, Offenses and Miscellaneous Provisions, to provide for effective dates and for other purposes. This is the second reading of the ordinance. The ordinance is largely unchanged since the first reading. However, under the section regulating the bows and crossbows, we have tweaked the provisions. The permitting requirement is no longer included, which we think strikes a better balance with the right for individuals to use their property and to exercise their Second Amendment. And also, it removes the training requirements for safety regulations, as concern was expressed about that. And again, it's aimed at striking the right balance while still protecting the safety of the public. And so the regulations are primarily aimed at where things are aimed, right? Sorry, we've been here a while. But to ensure that no targets or projectiles leave a property and provide distance regulations from occupied dwellings.
Is everyone clear on that? All right. Ms. Orhusky, do we have any public comment cards?
No, sir, we do not.
However, now's your chance to come forward if you'd like to speak on this item. Don't see anyone coming forward, so we'll close public comment. Do I have a motion from council?
Yes, Mayor, I move to approve on second reading the ordinance text amendments outlined by the city attorney.
I have a motion by Councilman Dorito. Do I have a second? Second by Councilman Driscoll. Any discussion? All those in favor, please vote yes. And it passes unanimously. So that'll wrap up that portion of tonight's business items and move on to the work session for the fiscal year 2027 budget. Director Harris.
Save the best for last. Mr. Harris.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is the second workshop on the budget. It's been out for about 2 weeks now, if I have my math right. Last meeting, we talked a lot about the operations, and tonight I just have a few slides to talk about capital, et cetera, and maybe to just readdress the overall budget again. I have met with several of you. I think almost every one of you has had some questions along the way. And I have a 3-hour meeting set up with Katie, Ms. Reeves, this week, so.
I'll bring the coffee.
But it's been good, and hopefully I've been able to answer it, and I appreciate you, some of those questions, so that we can, get everybody on the right page and not have to have it all up here in front. But I did want to mention, I made a mistake. You can mark that down. But your first slide there, if you could go ahead and move to slide 3, and then we'll come back to slide 2 in a minute. That's on, if you're looking at the hard copy. I think it's correct electronically. But again, just the budget overall, from an operational standpoint, is balanced on a same millage rate of 5.75 mils. We are projecting an increase in the neighborhood of about a 6% value increase on the residential side, and unfortunately on the commercial side, I know there was some discussions earlier tonight, but on the commercial side, we're still expecting that to be 0 or negative. I think negative 1% or so on the commercial side. So that is how basically the budget is balanced from a revenue standpoint. We do have salary increases in there for 3% merit, and then some market adjustment salary increases. I think the big significant item hasn't changed much since the retreat is I think it's a budget that's had to react to some things that were pushed upon us or left in our corner, and that is the jail, and then obviously that's about a $2.5 million spend. That is a large impact to a government our size, and I think regardless of that decision, this budget and what departments worked on together, I think, from your direction and everything, is a balanced budget that is able to carry that expense at 2.5, along with some revenues that an E911 subsidization of about $800,000. That's the full impact, and we're hoping to get some resolution with Milton down the road. But the reality is that revenue source is just not kept up with the demands of running a 911 center. So there is some legislation out there regarding some potential referendum for the voters for the state to create an E911 fund, but really I can't see anything right now. When reading that, it's hard to ascertain what our relief would be when you read that. So right now it's open, and we're not counting on it. Hopefully there is. Hopefully that indicates that some relief is on the way for all municipalities that run E911 centers. But right now I don't know what that is when you read the statute or the change. So next, there's obviously.
If I could, just pause you there. Chief Lingren, are you familiar with the legislation? I believe there's an amendment supposed to be on the ballot this fall. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Revenues for 911 operations?
Yes, that is correct.
That is correct. It's not settled as to what the determination is. They're considering alternative form of revenue, alternative sources of recovering revenue because of the current situation.
So people are voting on an amendment without having clarity as to what the amendment says?
I think there's still discussion as to how they're going to recover that money.
Mayor, I've got it here in front of me if you want me to just read it for you real fast.
If you don't mind, I mean, that's a
Sure.
pretty big hit for
So it's a-
those of
it's-
you that aren't aware.
It's the Georgia
We're-
authorized creation of Next Generation 911 Fund, and a yes vote would support amending the state constitution to allow the state legislature to create and dedicate revenue to a fund titled the Georgia Next Generation 911 Fund. But to Tom and Chief's point, it's very vague regarding where that funding would come from. There's no identified funding, potentially some new sources of revenue or possibly even current sources of revenue, but it does not establish what. It basically just says that there can be an amendment to the Constitution to allow for funding of E911 centers moving forward, but it's very vague beyond that right now.
And on that point, will it be funding to 911 centers specific or by county, with counties then doling it out to jurisdictions in the counties?
I hate to be a broken record, but it's not that specific. It basically just says municipalities that have E911 centers, and it doesn't go really beyond that. It's very vague.
And it also references, funding sources, but it then goes on to say it's existing revenues. So I don't know if existing revenues means that, the $1.50 or the surcharge on your cell phone usage, is that a revenue that they can take to $3 and that's existing revenues, or is that existing revenues only the $1.50? Don't know. Seems to have some contradictory language in it, to be honest. But
Yeah, I was just curious if we would receive, saying the funding's there, we would receive state dollars directly to the municipality, or if it gets washed through an intermediary government level.
There's no indication of that. I mean, and again, I'm making an assumption here, but based on the way it's written, it would come straight to the municipality.
Well, and that's why I wanted to bring this to everybody's attention, and for the public as well. City of Alpharetta used to sustain our E911, our 911 operators, by a state-allowed fee on phones. But now everybody has a cell phone, and it's not covering the costs. It's costing us over $800,000 a year out of our general fund. And so that's a big issue, and I'm disappointed that it's still up in the air as to how that revenue is going to be recovered. Councilwoman Reese.
Summertime seems like a time off for everybody, but the legislators are kind of like figuring out what they're going to focus on in the fall. And it seems like a really good time for all the cities to get together and talk to our North Fulton legislators, talk to people at the state. I mean, you guys are connected. Let's talk to people at the state. I don't think the intention was ever for it not to be covered. And this has really put us in a significant hole. And I think everybody wants our citizens covered. But the point being, by the time we get to the fall, I hope that we all have discussed what our legislative objectives are and what our wish list is. I'd rather give them a wish list than just cross my fingers and hope that our legislators are going to do what we need. I think that it would be worth our while. And I know that we've got a get-together planned at some point about strategic plan. Maybe that'd be a good time. But I'll leave that to you. But I would like to hand them a list of what we would like, and this seems to be really at the top of the list.
Councilman Dorito.
Yeah, two quick things, just on this topic. I think it was in the 80s, there's a U.S. Supreme Court case, Goldberg versus Sweet, and I know it very well. It was to determine where the excise tax would go to state and local jurisdictions around the country, because cell phones, you go all over the place, right? So they made it the billing address of the cell phone. I don't know why our state legislature, maybe we can do this in advising them on this, they should apply the same logic under that case to cell phone users who have a address in Alpharetta, that 911 fee gets imposed on that bill, and that money comes to the local jurisdictions to continue, Mayor, what we're losing right now, potentially a funding source for our 911 center. But just a thought, something we might want to lobby on,
But then we have 50,000 additional people on top of our nighttime residents in the city. So we have a 911 center in the daytime for 120,000, but we have 65,000 potential cell phone owners, max.
Yeah, but under the current way we got the 911 revenues was you had to have a phone in the city of Alpharetta, correct? Same concept? People coming in the city, you couldn't charge them for the 911 fee in Alpharetta.
It's where the phone,
It was where the
area
phone.
code and the phone is registered.
So this is a similar concept. that you
It's
could
getting
charge.
kind of late,
I know, I'll leave that alone.
and we're not going to solve this problem
I think
because
we-
it's a legislative problem, but
I think we
it
can
is
solve
great for us
And
to have.
one
this
other quick thing, I just want to confirm for the record, Senate Bill 33 signed by the governor, which puts the statewide cap on property tax increases. I know Fulton County already does that, and we
do that.
we didn't opt out of that. So this doesn't affect us at all, right?
That
No,
Senate bill.
Okay, I didn't think so. I just wanted to confirm that. Thank you.
So what I would, if you could, because this was one of the questions, I think, following up from possibly from the mayor, but if we could show this next slide, which I have to go backwards on mine, but this is just what the impact would be to a homeowner, to a homesteaded property on potentially the assessed value of that home. Now, we're not assessors, so when we said that it's residential overall, 6% growth, we were assuming very similar to the prior year that it's 6% on average, because some homes that aren't homesteaded may see a big jump and some that are homesteaded won't, and vice versa, but at the end of the day, it's about 6%. So just wanted to run some scenarios real quick so you understand how a homesteaded property's value or taxes would go up, when that value is passed on by the assessor's office, and then you apply the floating homestead exemption, which says that their adjusted base value, that is the value of which they're going to get taxed on, that adjusted base value can only go up the lesser of CPI or 3%. And so this past year, it's 2.7% is the CPI increase. So let me just make sure everybody's got that. If there's a 0% increase in the value of a homesteaded property, then they still will see, if they're sitting on value or on a floating homestead exemption value, because over the years, they're sitting on an exemption, their value in their home is much greater than that adjusted base, then it will go up 2.7%. They will see that on the operation side. On the debt side, they'd see nothing because there's a 0 increase. So I didn't put 0 on here, but I just wanted to try to get our brains thinking about how the floating homestead works. But what we did is we took an average home, and then we said homesteaded values of, let's use the base at $750, but this year they saw a 6% increase. Then they're going to pay $1,591 versus $1,498. If you go down below that, you'll see that's $52.60, and that's $3.51%. So if they did see the average that we think they could see, 6%, it equates, and because of that floating homestead only applies to the operation, doesn't apply to the debt. And we are shifting a little bit of the millage over to operations, then therefore they will see slightly over the 3% if they saw a 6%. And the vice versa, if they see a 10%, now they shouldn't see a 10%, but I have noticed that the assessor's office at times could go 2 years, 3 years without an increase, and then 40 or 50, 20, 30, 40% increase, unfortunately. You're going to shave that down quite a bit because of the floating homestead. It's going to save that taxpayer, but they will see it on the debt side because there's no protection over there. And unfortunately, you can look at it, they could have been paying more over the years or whatever, but it's a shock to them because it still will be a percentage of their taxes they owe will be on that smaller millage rate. That's the point. Oh, I would get this messed up. 7. 0.7. No, last year was 0.72. Now it's 0.70. 7. Yes, 70, because the operation's 5.05. But anyways, good news for us too is that the state has put in a let me make sure I use the word, HTRD, Homeowners Tax Relief Grant. They do this occasionally. They are providing a grant for $18,000 homestead exemption to everybody. So that $18,000 homestead exemption amounts to about $90 based on our millage rate, because it again will apply to the operating mills, and they will pay us back. So we'll give the credit to the taxpayer, and then the state pays us that dollar amount. That's about 1.3 million to the city, coming from the state that we provide this grant. So that amount is about $90, $91. So if you can see under both those scenarios, they would have no increase in taxes after you apply that grant. So hopefully, I just wanted to show that and how it works and what those impacts are, because I know there's also a lot of legislation that's always talking about we need to cap it, save it more, and et cetera, and get into our business. But at the end of the day, there's already a significant exemptions that are that we offer our residents. Other than that, I just wanted to, because this didn't get flashed up in the screen last week, is really just the current year capital plan for 2027, and this will just give you, again, it's in your budget document, but it usually becomes where a lot of the questions get into the funding of these projects. So at the end of the day, it's because we're bringing over carried forward balances and T-SPLOST and everything, and then from a lot of the T-SPLOST, we turn right around and reserve it, and then you guys as council will decide ultimately that usage, albeit was under a plan under T-SPLOST 2, but the actual appropriation will come from you when we bring it forward as projects. But at the end of the day, it's $36 million of revenue sources, and we appropriate 18 million of projects that are identified in your budget book. Mainly, you're talking everything from road repair of 5.7 million, facility of improvements of 4.3 million, fleet overall is about 2.2 million for several departments that are following the new fleet policy of their mileage and years of service. Stormwater's 1.5. Pete's taking a look at that number and feels that, that lesser amount that we originally had started a few years ago is this is a, acceptable number for him to maintain the stormwater at this time. And then IT improvements of 400,000, et cetera, et cetera. So it's all there in the attachments, as specifically the projects themselves. And with that, I'm not going to belabor those. All the items are in the presentation, actually, and then there's a write-up. It will tell you which page those assets, those capital items, what their intent is. Lastly, I want to move over to the calendar, because we still have time between now and the first public hearing, June 1st, for those questions to continue to work with your department heads and ask questions to myself and Chris Lauterbloom and others. So we are putting out the notice of tax increase. Those of you who are very familiar with, there's no way really around it unless you're going to lower millage rates and try to survive on the same revenues you had last year to pay for increased health costs and increased personnel costs and salaries. You're not going to roll back, and most cities do not roll back, but you still have to advertise because you didn't roll back for that value increase, and your presumed value increases that you're going to have a tax increase. And keep in mind, what you see in the paper will probably be very, conservative. It'd be a greater tax increase than we ultimately will pass on when we get the assessments. But we do that so that you don't have to restart the ads and all that. There's state law requirements that if you miss that mark and underestimate the tax increase, you have to start the process all over again. So we do estimate it. So we're using the same number we used the year before, approximately 6.5% tax increase. Again, you're not changing the millage rate. That's a standard operating procedure, standard memos, standard notice in the newspapers. But just wanted to give you a heads up. That has to be issued now so that we can meet these deadlines. So that's it. We'll meet again prior to this if we have to. If you guys call something special for us to go over, or if you send a lot of requests and we have a lot of things to answer, we'll do that. If not, we're scheduled to talk about this on June 1st.
Thank you, Tom. This is a work session item. I didn't point that out earlier, so there is no vote on this item. This is just to have a public discussion because we're elected officials. We can't just sit in a boardroom and decide all this stuff. We have these discussions in public so the public knows what we're doing with their money. Councilwoman Reese.
Thank you. I appreciate the work. I appreciate my budget book. I was wondering, do you know what the rollback rate is going to be this year?
What it would be
What do you
if
guess?
what we're assuming.
If you were revenue neutral?
You have that add.
Because you're allowed to use the growth rate, correct?
What's that?
You're allowed to use the actual new growth, the taxable digest that is new growth.
New growth does not play in.
Is
it's
not-
all-
it does
but
not
again, it's-
calculate in.
Right now, it's all estimating on us.
I don't need, I'm
Yeah.
going to see you today and this week,
Yeah.
so I don't need to have it right now, but just we'll run over that the next time we have a hearing.
I didn't get a chance to check it, Sean. Just kidding. No, that's. Is it later?
Any other questions? Councilman Heights?
Yeah, Director Harris, you said, we do the advertising for the, what'd you call it, increase?
A tax increase.
But in the context of the additional revenue generated by valuations, capped by homesteads, et cetera, that more or less just tracks even with our expense increase, doesn't it?
Correct.
So that tax increase is not over any mid-year adjustment, it's over last year, correct?
Correct.
And our expense increase from where we started July 1 of 2025, when we back out the mid-year adjustments, our expense increase, I know you haven't run these numbers, but by my calculations, it's almost 6.6%.
Yeah, it's got to be well over 4, which is now because we did the mid-year budget.
Yeah, with the mid-year factored in, it shows 4.7. But, so in other words, we're just matching our increase in natural expenses.
From a year to year, yes, basically a base budget.
I don't even think.
There's not necessarily a new initiative in that budget, any significant amount that's in this budget from what the mid-year discussed and things that we're currently in the business of, yes.
But, we can tell the public that we're just
Yep.
keeping up with expenses.
Well, I mean, I always say that technically, the state does not need to advertise that the state sales tax is going up. It goes up every year as the volume of transactions go up and the dollar amounts of gas and everything else that's subject to sales tax. They don't have to post a newspaper article saying that they're going to have a tax increase because they're not lowering the 4% the 4 cents on the sales tax, that they're not lowering that. But with local government and property taxes, we have to go through this exercise.
Yeah, all right, appreciate it.
Any other questions for Director Harris? Is that breaking news you need to share with us right now?
Well, the estimated mill change would be, well, I mean, we would have had to roll back to 4.742 mills as opposed to 5.05 mills. And that's 0.3 mills, which 1 mill is about $7 million. So that's 0.3 times 7 million. I just like to throw out numbers. Hopefully that helps.
Thanks, sir. Do we have any more questions from council? Thank you, Director.
Thank you, Sean. Thanks, everybody.
Ms. Eswine, are we going to have an executive session this evening?
I believe so, yes.
Pardon?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Orhusky, do we have any public comment cards?
Yes, we do. Kristen Colby. If you will come state your name and address for the record, please.
Hello. Well, I'm very short. My name's Kristen Colby, and I live at 212 Canton Street in Alpharetta. Just let me know when I can start talking.
You are.
Is that okay? Okay, here we go. I know it's getting very late. I'm very tired. I'm sure y'all are too. The reason that I'm here tonight is that I know we have some items coming up on the T-SPLOST list, and I'm concerned about the one that says the Mayfield Road improvements. I've purchased the property at 212 Canton back in late 2021, and I've made significant improvements on the Upshaw House, which is a historical home built in 1925. That has taken on quite a lot of expense. It's a heck of a lot cheaper to knock down and to rebuild something new. When I came to look at the property and spoke with the city at that time, I thought it was something really cool. Alpharetta seemed to be really proud of their historical homes and the people that live there. And I'm sorry if I'm going to cry. But what I'm seeing right now is, what I'm seeing right now is that the downtown Garden District is changing a lot. I wasn't anticipating the development across the street. That was one thing that I was kind of surprised by when I moved in. There are 17 single-family homes being built across the street from me. My house is zoned single-family residential, and there are some other single-family residential homes there on Canton Street before Mayfield. The reason that I wanted to bring this up is because right now, to do this road improvement, it would have the potential to take out some large growth oak trees that are there in the Garden District. And it would also cause quite a burden on my family. We would have to depending on the expansion that would take place, it could potentially expand 19 feet into our yard. This is a historical property. We just recently redid Mr. Upshaw's pond, and I've put quite a lot of money into the landscape there. It also would involve moving my fence, my gate to my home. It would also impact the trees there, and also just kind of bring 4 lanes to right in my yard there. So I know that we need to do things that are good for the community. I know that folks don't like sitting in traffic, but I would like for you all to consider taking this off of the T-SPLOST list. No one watches it more than I do. I'm out there all the time gardening. Usually I have my headset on because there are a lot of loud trucks going by. But people are usually getting through pretty quickly. I think it's important that you do look into more options as far as timing the lights differently, perhaps making a different plan to make another right turn onto Main Street. I know a lot of folks are trying to get to 400 and trying to get to work in the morning. So I know that that's probably the frustration that people are feeling. I'm just not sure that it's best solved in encroaching on this important land. When I did buy the house and saw that the development was going across the street, at that time I kind of felt a little encroached upon. I went from this beautiful wooded lot with a historical home on it that we could see from our front porch and enjoy. That view has changed. So when my neighbors behind me decided to sell, I took that as an opportunity to kind of say, well, I might have lost my front porch view, but maybe I can make a nice back porch view. So I purchased the property next door, which is 146 Mayfield Road. So now I have 300-foot road frontage along Mayfield there. So if this expansion were to occur on my side of the street, it would affect both of these properties. And I've kind of paid those developer prices. It's definitely a hot spot to be in, I'm sure y'all know. So I'm just, I want to be on the same team as the city. I want to do what's right by people. But this is a very important landmark in the community. A lot of people do go by there every day. A lot of people have stopped and talked to me about how thankful they are that I've put so much work into the house. It's been on the Milton Tour of Homes. Sometimes people come across the street and think that I'm part of the Art Center, and I have given those old ladies tours of the home, even when I'm not put together and my house is a mess. So I'm very proud of it. It has been a large investment for one person to undertake, and I would just really appreciate the council's support in smaller people restoring these homes correctly. I know that a lot of times these lots get developed and, you know, the historical homes are kind of boxed off to be protected, but they don't really leave the integrity of the inside of the house. They might be required to leave the outside looking the same, but they don't really take the care to protect what's inside the house, like the coal burning fireplaces or the original heart pine floors and that kind of thing. So I just want to say, as a newbie to Alpharetta, I've only lived here 4 years now, I think. I'm very sentimental about Mr. Upshaw's lilies. I mean, I'm not from here.
If I could, I'd just pause you here. Typically, we only allow public comment for 3 minutes.
Okay, well, that's my comment.
No, but I
Thank you for your
understand.
time.
I saw your email. It's a complex issue, and there wasn't any way I could put all that in writing because I don't even know all of the engineering features that go into it. What I would suggest is please reach back out to us. You can reach out through me or to one of our department heads, either in Public Works or in Community Development, and sit down with our team and see if there's something we can do to mitigate this. The challenge is we do have to represent all the people and try to find a win-win.
I do understand that, but
I
don't think you're
understand. I'm
getting
just
the-
telling you that
Well, I
that's
want
the
you
way to
all to
resolve it. We're not
know
gonna
that I
say-
will make a huge stink, and I can afford to make a huge stink, and I am not afraid to go knocking on doors, and I will be a big problem for everyone. So that's where I'm at. I hope that you're on my side with this. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. Do we have any other public comment cards?
No, sir, we do not.
However, if you'd like to come forward, now's your chance. I will hold you to the 3 minutes on this point, though.
I'm Claudia Lewis, and my husband Nat and I live at 184 Canton Street. Right now, it's next door to Kristen, and not too long, we'll have a house in there that Mike and Rita Brown are building, and then I'll be one door down from her. We moved here in Alpharetta almost 60 years ago, and we brought 2 little boys with us. And we've loved Alpharetta, and we love our old historic house, and we love Kristen's house. Now, Mr. Upshaw, who probably most of you may not have known him personally, but he built that house. He built it with timber on his own property, and there are some mighty big oaks that are along Mayfield there that he may or may not have planted, but I'm sure he was very proud of them. And he never had any children of his own, but he was very, very kind to our boys who fell in his fish pond on any number of occasions, and he was very gracious to fish them out. Our dogs fell through his little root cellar. Our boys got up in trees they couldn't get out of, and he would hoist his ladder and carry it back into the woods and get them down. That's part of history, too. Not just the structures. And that fish pond, Kristen has lovingly restored a fish pond that my boys fell in. Now, I think we should be looking at the future, maybe in a slightly different way. And I noticed that some of the things that people said that they loved about Alpharetta, the tree canopy, the tree canopy. It used to be we could walk down Canton Street and there wasn't almost no sunshine that would hit the street. That's not true any longer. And every time we take out these big border trees, we lose that canopy. Now, of course, we have a wonderful tree program, and we plant lots and lots of trees, and that's wonderful. But there's a long time before there's going to be a canopy like there once was. So I guess what I'm asking is that we try to look at our priorities for the future and what we want Alpharetta of the future to look like. We're supposed to be the garden district. I understand the need to build roads and all of that, but I also understand the need of a homeowner. This is someone that has bought in Alpharetta and put a tremendous amount
Ma'am, your
of money.
time's up. Yeah, we'll be glad to have this discussion with you. If you
I
want to sit
appreciate
down
your
with
time so very much. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to come forward at this time? Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Okay. Please come forward.
My name is Bob Myers. I live in Crabapple on Hidden Meadow Drive. And I would start by saying I love the city. And I've lived here for more than 35 years. My mother was born here on a farm. I used to drive by this house that we're talking about, and it was dark, and it was gloomy, and I didn't know where it came from, and I was not involved with local history in any way. And I always wondered, why didn't someone just knock it down and put up a nice-looking house? Well, then suddenly it became a different house, and the buyer of the house painted it, did an amazing amount of work on the house, inside and out, and now it's a showplace. And anything that would cut down some of those beautiful trees and shorten the width of the property, I think it would be a crime to the community, because this house, in and of itself, is adding so much to the beauty of that part of Alpharetta. And I drive up and down Mayfield today, and I don't have a problem at the stoplight. There are a few cars in front of me, and it takes 2 or 3 to 5 minutes to get through. It's certainly not a major traffic hindrance, in my opinion. So that's what I have to say.
Thank you, sir.
Very much.
And I understand the concerns that you shared with us. I can't make any promises, but we will have a discussion amongst our leadership and our elected officials and go back and look at what's been proposed and what the other options are. I can't make any promises that anything's going to change, but I'll promise you that we'll look at it and try to figure out if there's any way to save what you're trying to save and still serve the public that we've got a responsibility to serve. So if there's anyone else that wants to come forward, or if you want to reach out to any of us individually, feel free to do so. My number, my email's on the website. I will respond eventually. It doesn't take just a couple of days sometimes to get through my list, but we're right here all the time. So that's the best I can do for you tonight. I appreciate your patience to sit through all of this meeting, because I know most of it must have bored you to tears. That being said, if there's no other public comments coming forward, we'll close public comment. And I believe we have to have an executive session. So do we have a motion to recess into executive session? Oh, sure. We'll go with reports first. Yeah.
Well, these are actually some pretty good reports. As they're walking out, please go to Wells Park Saturday, May 23rd at 10 o'clock. We're going to have the ribbon cutting for the new Wacky World. That'll be this Saturday, May 23rd, 10 o'clock. Followed by this Saturday, May 23rd at noon, is the opening of the Wells Park swimming pool for all of Alpharetta. So it's going to be a great day over at Wells Park with all that community input that we had on Wacky World. And then on Monday, May 25th, right out here at Brook Street at 9 o'clock, starting at 9 o'clock, will be the Memorial Day tribute. So please arrive before 9 o'clock, bring your own chair, blanket, friends and family. And then that evening on Brook Street Park, Memorial Day, will be the Alpharetta Symphony will have its concert, free concert. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Do I have a motion to? Okay. We have a motion to recess into executive
Second.
session by Councilman Hypes, second by Councilwoman Reeves. All those in favor, please vote yes. Councilman Driscoll. Could you push that button, please?
Mayor, will be.
It is unanimous.
We'll be going to executive session for litigation.
Thank you for clarifying. About what? We had 6 hours of meetings here. And we're not done yet. Do we have a motion to reconvene?
So moved.
Have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem, second by Councilman Hypes. All those,
Well, he's got candy in his mouth too, he's still out.
Councilwoman Reeves? You want to come vote so we can adjourn? Okay. All those in favor of reconvening? Vote yes. We have reconvened. Do we have a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Councilman Doritos, second by Hypes. All those in favor of adjourning, please vote yes.
Especially around 10 o'clock around here now.
And it is unanimous. Thank you, everyone.